data na tunataka kuhakikisha pia tutaweka siri ile.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
All right, so what are we looking at this morning? It looks like we have some traffic on Mombasa Road heading out into the city. It looks like it's going to be quite busy this morning. Coming off of Thika Road as well, quite heavy as you're coming into the city. We're going to have a look at that. Hopefully we won't have as many accidents as we did yesterday morning in different pockets of Nairobi. Looking out of the city as well, it looks pretty good. Going west, going east as well. Looks like we started off to a good Tuesday morning. Let's keep it that way, shall we? SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch just in case anything goes haywire. Text us on 40127. Let's start this Tuesday off right and keep things moving, shall we?
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's Tuesday, the 13th day of July, 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. How are you, wherever you are tuned in? Karibu kwenye kipindi cha leo. Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, Eric Latif in the house. Ndu?
Yes?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you well?
I am well.
You look good.
Why, thank you very much. Asante sana.
Karibu.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay.
I thank God.
You're very formal this morning.
Yeah? Yeah. It's a sign of things to come. Mr. C.T. Muga.
Okay.
Yes,
Good morning,
Mr.
sir.
Eric Latif, I am very well, thank you, sir. And indeed, it is a wonderfully cold morning.
Hey, my friend, this cold. Sheesh.
Siti, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
Yes? Good. I'm happy to see you.
When he said he's well, and I asked him, it's just,
No, salute. Yeah,
it's the same.
I was asking, so just making sure that as he was
It's
then
the same
referring
CT.
to me, that, you know, you could be well to one person and not to another.
All right.
Let's just clarify this.
Why don't we set this thing straight? Eric, response to your question, I'm well, thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm very well, thank you.
What, you see?
Okay, is that better?
It's good.
Okay,
CT.
tomorrow, Eric, when you ask the question, your turn for me to be very well.
okay.
All right?
Yes. Depends on who asks you first. Eh? Sawa. Yeah, we're talking about the weather and how cold it is. Yeah? Has it been this cold in recent years, really?
It has.
Well, I was about to ask in this decade, but I just realized we're in the second year of the decade.
Yeah.
Has it been this cold in the last 2 decades?
Well, it has, but in the last 3 years, actually, this is the coldest so far. I was just reading something yesterday, actually, to that effect. And we're looking at 2021 as one of the coldest here. Last year, 2020, did not reach to the temperatures that we're seeing right now. Certain parts of the country, we're looking at, just like Timboroa and Limuru, that area, in the last couple of days have dropped to 8 degrees, 7 degrees. So, yeah, it's one of the coldest in recent years.
You can imagine people near Mount Kenya.
I can't even imagine.
Way. It's biting cold. It is biting cold. And then some parts of the world, it's so hot that there's a town in Canada that is so hot and so dry that an entire town burnt down.
Tinder, basically. It was stuff for the fire, essentially.
An entire town. It's in a valley, so it gets very hot. So this one time, in fact, the story that I was reading was, the leaves were so dry, they were just falling. And then it's not clear what exactly sparked the fire, but it spread, and within a very short time, the entire town was razed to the ground. Hot.
Well, there's also the details of people dying from
It is very cool.
It isn't the first time, though, that this has happened.
No, it isn't.
One of the things that will also happen, if you look at the roads that we refer to here as tarmac roads, with these heat waves, some even begin to melt.
I think we did see this. I remember my brother reporting out of Iraq a few years ago, and it had gotten so hot that his boots melted on the tarmac. He had to leave them and enter into the vehicle barefoot. It was that hot. They had to put their cameras down, and he had to leave his boots because they were melting into the tarmac. It was that hot. They were close to 50 degrees. It was terrible.
50. Dorcas, you hear that? 50. Why? Hey. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we'll have a number of conversations. So there's unrest and turmoil in South Africa. Release Jacob Zuma. Now, because of that, we are seeing, people out in the streets looting, damaging property. It's just getting out of hand, getting out of control completely. We'll have a conversation about that with somebody from South Africa who will be telling us what are they seeing on the ground. And then we'll also have a conversation at 8 o'clock about these vaccines that we've been waiting for. So we are told that how many millions are coming?
23 million by the end of August.
By the end of August.
10 million this July, 13 million in August. Do the math, 23, boom.
Johnson, one shot.
Johnson in August. Some more AstraZeneca in July.
So 13 Johnson, one shot, 13 million, done.
But let me
10
ask you a
million
question.
AstraZeneca,
When you say
2.25 million.
AstraZeneca Europa or
AstraZeneca India?
Yeah, which one?
Now we'll be told.
So Dr. Hwale, who is the head of the vaccine rollout program, will be joining us at 8 o'clock. He'll be here. We'll ask him all these questions. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask him, please send in the questions. And then there's also the support that we are getting from the UK government in terms of identifying the variants that are in the country. The support that has been extended from the UK government to our own Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI. It was announced earlier this week, on Monday. The Deputy UK High Commissioner will be here to tell us more about that. And we'll ask her very many questions as well. There's more about Kenya's relations with the UK. The President of Kenya is expected to go to the UK later this month.
I was about to ask you, who's the President of Kenya? Okay.
And he'll be meeting with the UK Prime Minister, and they'll be launching some education initiative. Well, they launched it. They'll just be doing something more on this education initiative. What is it that they're doing? Remember a couple of months back where the President did some Zoom meeting with Boris Johnson, and he was in a classroom with some students in Westlands. So there's something that they're doing about education. We want to
Something's
understand what
going
that
on.
is. So the Deputy High Commissioner will be here at 7 o'clock. It's a busy show today, so keep it right here. So now that we'll be talking about COVID and the vaccines, will tell us about the numbers.
Okay, so let's look at the numbers really quickly. Global numbers are now at 188,053,043. Some news coming out yesterday in terms of what then happens if you have not received your vaccine and you are a frequent traveller. As a Kenyan, you're a frequent traveller to some European countries and other parts of the world. It would appear that now 53 countries have banned Kenyan passport holders. They cannot access 53 countries in the wake of COVID-19 in the global race to protect nations against new variants of the virus. So the Henley Passport Index, which is what is being called, has been regularly monitoring the world's most travel-friendly passports since 2006, okay? And they've made revelations that show how the pandemic has affected travel. Australia, Argentina, Belgium, Cambodia, the UK, Canada, Portugal, Denmark, Bulgaria, and Singapore top the list of countries that have banned or placed restrictions on holders of Kenyan passports. Others are Hong Kong, Bangladesh, and the list goes on and on, including Cameroon, interestingly enough. And they list the only African country to place restrictions on Kenya now being Cameroon.
Right.
The highly contagious COVID-19 Delta variant may spark a fourth wave of infections in Kenya over the next 2 months, from what we're being told by the health ministry. So we're looking at...
Does it say that Kenya has also placed restrictions on some countries?
No.
It should.
Yeah, so 53,
Because
54 countries
UK, come here.
We ought to reciprocate.
X.
at the very least, wouldn't you think?
Look, which of these countries can tell us that they do not have COVID in their country?
They should go and sit down. First of all, the United Kingdom.
That one we already dealt with.
What
Those
are we
ones we
talking
already
about?
told them, listen.
Hong Kong. Bangladesh.
No, Cameroon.
I didn't even want to go to Cameroon. I just wanted to leave that one first before we even get there.
The
Before we
Czech
even look at what's
Republic.
going on.
Chile.
Czech Republic. I mean, there's some countries who've done very well to be able to manage the COVID spread, such as Australia, for example, and have tried to do extremely well. So maybe that could be understood. But the rest of these fellows here, I mean, come on, we're all in the same mud puddle.
It's important to note, though, that these countries have basically restrictions on many countries, not just Kenya.
Well, we aren't concerned about the other countries.
I'm concerned about Kenya.
No. If they want to place restrictions
That's their business.
on Kazakhstan, whatever that country is called,
That one?
by all means do
Go
so.
ahead.
Yes.
But don't do it
Concerned
to
about?
us.
When you do it to us, then we say thank you. Now, why don't we be the good neighbor and reciprocate?
Okay. Kenya has not retaliated against the 54 countries.
Reciprocated.
Retaliated is what the story tells us.
Reciprocated.
But we have-
Retaliated,
we
according
have
to the East
against the
African,
UK, bwana.
against the 54 countries after it left a handful of countries whose citizens need to quarantine before they're allowed into the country in a last month review. All right?
Has the US prevented us from going there?
Oh, no. The US is not on that list. But the countries that require then
Is
14
Canada
days-
on that list?
Yes. The countries that require, on the side of Kenya, the countries that are required to have 14 days mandatory quarantine are Ireland, Kuwait, Pakistan, Brunei, and Thailand. So coming in from there, you can come into the country, not a problem, but you must quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah, but then this, something must be said about the COVID visa. You see, when we were quarantining people, it's before we had advanced our knowledge of how it is you can detect and determine whether somebody has been vaccinated, whether somebody has been vaccinated once or twice, with what vaccine that they have been vaccinated. There are very many details that we didn't know. Now we do. So even as you talk about quarantining a person, are we still where we were in this country, where we were at the beginning of COVID, where we have no information, we have no knowledge, we don't know? Or is it that we don't trust the knowledge that they give us? So because of that, we have to quarantine you and determine whether you are COVID positive or not. Look, I know we're talking about reciprocating and revenging and what have you, but the truth of the matter is countries need to protect their citizens.
True.
And if they feel that your country represents a danger, and we represent a danger because of the evidence that has been proven of the existence of the Delta variant. Now, the Delta variant is a killer. It's a scary mutation. So I can fully understand why it is that these countries are taking these steps. Though with Cameroon, I don't understand.
They're protecting their
except
people.
Cameroon.
Are you saying the people of Cameroon?
Don't need to be protected.
18 minutes after 6, Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break. Let's take a look at the weather. How cold is it wherever you are? Or how hot is it for those who are listening from the hot areas, parts of the world? We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, so we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi. There's probably going to be a bit of a drizzle in the city for most parts of this morning. And then going to clear conditions, highs of 21 and lows of 15 today. Light rain in Nyeri at 13, highs of 21 and lows of 14. Light rain at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 22 and lows of 14. 11 in Eldoret, rain showers going to highs of 20. 26 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kisumu at 18. And we're looking at 19 in Kakamega with highs of 25 and lows of 15. 23 will be the low in Mombasa, where it's raining slightly, at 22. 28 will also be the high in Malindi. Rain showers at 24. We're looking at highs of 24 in Kampala, 19 and partly cloudy, 22 and partly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 10 in Johannesburg, 29 will be the high in Lagos, and mostly clear conditions at 30 with a high in Kinshasa. New York at 23 will go to highs of 27 and lows of 22.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, it's 21 minutes after 6.
94.4.
Conversation begins now. CT, today's proverb?
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
No matter how full, the river still wants to
grow.
To grow.
Yes.
To grow.
There's no time.
To fill up.
There's no time the river says it has enough water. None whatsoever.
How about when it starts vomiting?
What?
No.
Flooding.
It's just finding new pathways.
When it breaks its banks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the river saying, tosha.
No, that's not saying tosha.
Enough.
That's saying, let us traverse the terrain and see what lies there.
Really, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, all right. Several people are online this morning. Ndu.
That is. Sir Haran says, good morning, guys. It's my birthday. Wish me well. Well, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Sir Haran.
And he says, Kisumu is tuned in. Baridi Nayo. Also, it
Proper.
would appear that Baridi is Kisumu. James G is tuned in from Mbakasi this morning, says, good morning to Eric and CT. Well, Karibu Sana. Kijana Paulo says, good morning. Morning, guys. Tuned in from Sunset Boulevard. Huh?
The way.
Hey, this is serious.
Right.
And that's Kim Shah, Jackson Jack, and says, and God needs to us his children. Okay, well, good morning. Good morning. It's 34 in Qatar. By 12, it'll hit 45. That's Eli Maish It's now 34 degrees and the sun
In
is
Qatar?
yet to come up. Yes.
That's cold.
34.
34.
It'll be 45 by lunchtime.
Well,
he
at
says.
least now, yeah, that'll be normal.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rogers Lies tuning from County 001 is back and is locked. And our hype man, David Chiari, is saying good morning. His number one station in Awaka. Waka. Jackson Jack again. And Phil F. Collins says good morning from Mbakasi. Evans K. Vance is tuned in from Mogotio in Baringo County. Collins Kim Tai Kipsat tuned in from Eldoret. Charity is tuned in from Nakuru. And Bishogoro Omakaya is tuned in from Getari village. And he says it is very cold. Kennedy Ogodo says Muga. That's what he actually said, like that. Happy seeing you guys. Beautiful faces and minds from you.
That's what he told you.
Walai. I'm just verbal.
Is he greeting us or is he calling out
Muga
city?
first. He hailed Muga, then the rest can follow.
Oh, not the Meru greeting.
Not Muga. Oh, I don't know. See now? You just confused me.
Okay, let's take a look at the headlines. I want to start with this one. So, Caroline Kangogo, 34-year-old police officer, who is being sought by police in what police are alleging to be, a murder investigation, and she's right there in the center of it. So fresh details are emerging now that, you know what, maybe Miss Kangogo is actually hiding from some rogue police officers, and she's being hidden by rogue police officers. Now, rogue depending on who you look at, who's talking. Fugitive police officer Caroline Jemutai Kangogo could have been involved in shady dealings with colleagues, detectives say, amid suspicions that she is being protected by rogue members of the service. The nation has learnt of an intricate web of rogue police officers operating 2 syndicates in the Rift Valley, one of which Ms. Kangogo was part of. The syndicate, according to sources privy to the investigations and who don't want to be named, are involved in robberies, extortion, protection of politicians and business people in Nakuru, Eldoret, Kapsabet, Kericho and other towns in the Rift Valley. An officer told the nation that there was more to the killings of Mr. John Ogweno on Monday last week and Mr. Peter Ndwiga the next day. Ogweno, a police constable, was found murdered, and Ndwiga, of course, was also found slain in Kiambu. So this story basically saying is those things that we've been saying here. Is it possible that Miss Kangogo is actually running away from killers and that she is not a killer?
Very possible.
That the people who killed Mr. Ogweno narrowly missed killing Miss Kangogo. That the people who killed Mr. Ndwiga are trying to implicate Miss Kangogo, because even there's a police officer who's been quoted her saying her house was left open, her phone was found at the scene of Ogweno's murder, and a receipt bearing her name was found in Mr. Ndwiga's pockets.
How convenient.
A police officer of her caliber would know better than leave clues all over. Why also would she use her ATM card to pay for meals and accommodation if she's indeed trying to conceal her whereabouts? You know, this question, like, really, why, if I'm the one who has paid for a meal, why would my colleague have the receipt?
And my name is supposedly on this
And
receipt.
my name is clearly on the receipt, and it's found bloodied. Why?
There are too many pieces that are just not connecting at all. Secondly, we also then saw the story of this lady who was injured because it was mistaken identity. They thought it to be her.
Yeah.
So the intention was to kill her if
By
they
the way,
saw
that
her.
story of the lady who was shot accidentally, there was a twist to it. In yesterday's papers, the lady mentioned that this gentleman had made advances towards her. And then when she declined those advances is when she was shot.
And then later he claims, no, I thought it was.
Yes.
And clearly, if you have made advances and all.
Man, if you've bounced, you've bounced.
You already know that this is not Kangogo. Otherwise, why are you hitting on her?
Yes.
There's something here. And from the very beginning, the way we spoke and raised those questions about what exactly is happening here, even this story by The Nation today is asking those questions. Is it possible that Ms. Kangogo is running away from rogue elements in the police service who maybe a deal gone sour, or she had too much information, or she stumbled upon information and she was threatening to leak this information. And they were like, oh my goodness, this one is a danger.
Yep.
This and Mr. Ogweno are a danger. So let's start eliminating them.
The thing is,
calling her a killer.
As this saga moves on, one thing that, remember this Shakespearean quote, the lady doth protest too much. In this particular instance, I mean, I'm putting it out of context and all that, there seems to be too much effort being made to actually provide evidence for a narrative that was begun.
Yeah.
That Ms. Kangogo indeed is a killer. So now evidence keeps springing up, receipt, this, another person dead, on the run. It's too convenient. It's too convenient.
Too much.
It's too convenient.
Too much. Too much.
You know, she may very well be the things that they're saying, but you still have to question, why so much effort?
To prove that she actually is.
Yes, why so much effort?
If indeed she's a killer. Yeah, and then it takes so long for police officers, this DCI of ours to actually
find one
track
of their own.
No,
someone.
No.
Our DCI
and then this one is one of their own.
Yeah.
No.
And they'll find you.
Unless she's being protected and they know where she is. And so they're trying to, just throw in the smoke. Smoke you out.
And why would she be protected?
Exactly.
Because there are those who actually know the whole story.
Yep.
And if it's something that the police know, they are not going to tell you.
Yep.
But among themselves, they will know.
They will know exactly what's going on in this particular case. Time for us to take another break and take a look at traffic shortly. Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room at 6:30. Well, today is Tuesday. No, it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and Tuesday is the day when we have a business pullout in the Standard. If you'd like to get more business stories, though, you can actually access this on our website, standardmedia.co.ke/business. Standardmedia.co.ke/business. For all information on business, financial markets, technology, real estate, check out the business section of the Standard website. You get a lot of content on business. There are people who actually just love reading business information, just keeping on the know. So here it is, standardmedia.co.ke/business. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that knowing how to spot fake news can be the difference between life and death. The spread of fake news has national implications too. Is your governor really delivering on his campaign promises? Or does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have a watertight case against him? It all boils down to the news you consume. That's why SpiceFM and its partners have created the Fighting Fakes Media Literacy campaign to help Kenyans become more discerning news consumers. We'll show you how to take care before you share. Tune in to the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday morning for refreshing and profitable conversations about the facts and only the facts.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sports lives here.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well. No, you must watch this, look up.
And everyone knows. Okay.
All right, so what are we looking at? The weather doesn't look to be quite favourable in certain parts of the city, making visibility a bit difficult today. And that slows down traffic quite some. We're looking at this going out towards Westlands, out towards Kikuyu, and it looks like that might be a bit of an issue, but not too crazy. There is traffic on Mombasa Road outbound towards the city. Thika Superhighway traffic is moving slowly from Muthaiga towards the tunnel, and that's about 10 minutes or so ago, but it doesn't look to be moving too badly right now, okay? We're also looking at a little bit of traffic as you then approach Jogo Road from Hamza out towards Landis and into the city. That is moving without too much of an issue. The ICD route then connects you with Mombasa Road. It also takes you towards the southern bypass as you get to that junction just at Langata. That shouldn't be too much of an issue either. So we're looking at little pockets of traffic here and there. We'll give you more details as we go along this morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. If you get into a pickle somewhere, somebody must be of help.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 25 minutes to 7. So
94.4.
I'm seeing, go back to the tweet. There's a guy called Evans K. Vance, who's where? Who's in Bogotio, Baringo, waiting for more hot conversations. Well, good morning, Evans. Say hello to the crocodiles.
Wapi, David.
The crocodile, the python, all of them found in Baringo. Say hello to them. Yeah. What are you looking at?
Oh, okay. So there's quite some. So the Chief Justice has fired a warning shot, apparently. And she has put both houses of Parliament on notice in a letter detailing multiple and overlapping summons to judicial staff that she says borders on harassment and disrespect for constitutional boundaries and halts appearances until the matter is resolved. So she put on her no-nonsense hat yesterday and said, you know what, you people will behave yourselves.
You're too much.
It's too much.
It's too much.
In what points to be a looming showdown, Chief Justice Martha Koome fired a warning shot to Parliament yesterday, and by extension, the executive arm which controls the two chambers. In the salvo delivered on the day Chief Registrar of Judiciary Anna Madi was to appear before a House committee, Koome put the two houses of Parliament on notice that it will no longer be business as usual as far as parliamentary summons are concerned. She accused MPs of pursuing individual interests, well, surprise, surprise, and of harassing judicial officers in the name of undertaking their oversight role. A hard-hitting letter to Parliament seen by the Standard froze any further appearance by judicial officers until the elephant in the room is addressed by the two speakers, Justin Muturi, the National Assembly, and Ken Lusaka of the Senate. Her predecessor, Dr. Willie Mutunga, had previously led top judicial office holders in snubbing MPs, leading to an ugly confrontation in the months leading to his retirement. In the recent past, according to this letter, we have had frequent and multiple summons from Parliament, overlapping and duplicating summons from different committees of the same House, and also between the two houses to discuss the same issues. Part of it borders on harassment. She said there were demonstrable instances of inquiries that disrespected the constitutional boundaries governing the relationship between the institutions. She cited instances where Amadi and other senior judicial officers had been summoned to multiple committees to respond to various issues. And she said, this is too much.
It's just too much.
Stop. And I am now ordering that nobody
will come until you gentlemen, speakers, meet with us and we have this conversation. Now, if you look at what she is saying and what we have seen actually happening, we have seen governors also complaining. I mean, I'm being summoned by the Senate today, tomorrow I'm being summoned by the other day. How many times am I going to obey these summonses? Ministers, cabinet secretaries have also complained. So you've been summoned by this committee. Tomorrow you're being summoned by the other committee. The other day you're being summoned by another committee. And the cabinet secretaries are like, guys,
can I actually get some more?
Yeah.
Do you guys talk to each other?
Yeah, you should be. Did you know that I had just come to speak to your colleague the other day on the same matter? You know, should you communicate amongst yourselves to let each other know that really we've had this conversation before? You know, can we not have a duplicity of effort here? Essentially, that's what's being said.
What is being presented here is the image of a parliament that is trying very hard to be relevant and trying to show that they are actually doing their job.
But also, if you look at it now, being fair to Parliament, if you sit in a committee of, say, roads, transport, infrastructure, right? You are doing your job, and your job requires you to get answers from the PS in charge of infrastructure. You'll summon the PS. Somebody else in the Public Accounts or Public Investments Committee is looking at the auditor's report and they require some answers from the PS in charge of infrastructure. They'll summon the PS. Somebody else sitting in the Budget Committee or Finance Committee or another committee will want some answers and they'll summon the same PS. Now, would you say that they are harassing the PS or are they doing their job? As a member of that committee, you have a brief. You're looking at a specific matter that you want to report back to the House.
You know, my response to your question is I don't know. Because I don't know what the threshold for the number of times a government official can actually be summoned by Parliament. I also do not know whether there is a clear understanding as to what it is that constitutes the threshold for them to be summoned. There is the number of times and then what it is that now requires a senior government official
to appear before.
Yes, I don't know what that is. So until those two issues in my mind are clear, then it is also very difficult to actually comment favorably or to comment knowledgeably because I honestly don't know. You see, I may say I'm being harassed simply because I'm not accustomed to being summoned. And as you say correctly, Parliament may simply be doing their job. But perhaps, if I may speak Kenyanese, for avoidance of doubt.
All.
For avoidance of all doubt.
All
avoidance of all doubts.
Voila.
Okay? Then perhaps there needs to be clarity. Okay, the president of the, what is that court called? Supreme Court. Yes. Has come up and said what she has said. But can you furnish us puny mortals with details of what it is that is actually required of Parliament and what is required of you and what the understanding is so that we then know, okay, these are the benchmarks. So from beyond this, we can say, no, these people are being harassed. Or they haven't met the threshold. They're supposed to summon you at least 10 times a year. They only summoned you 3 times. So it doesn't qualify.
As harassment.
No, it doesn't. Yes.
Okay.
Same would also be said of courts and summoning. So somebody has gone to court, they want to stop a certain government order, so court just immediately says, halt whatever you're doing, halt whatever you're doing. The executive has been complaining. Come on. I just want to make a move and somebody has run to you. And you're saying, even without listening, you're saying, first of all, hold temporarily as we hear this. Should be something. I think there needs to be some
there's need for some clarity
on how these
in terms
three
of how it's supposed to be
government.
actually. Because truth be told, if several committees are calling you, it's because maybe they have something that they need to clarify.
Yeah, and each of them is doing its own.
It's doing their job.
Yeah.
If it just happens to be you, the subject, then it happens to be you, the subject, not necessarily that they're picking on you. So yes.
Should there be some way in which the committee is someone you through the office of the clerk, and the clerk is looking and saying, okay, so there's 3 committees that are looking into matters that pertain to the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure. Can you guys harmonize, and then you can summon this person on this one day, and you can come and answer? You can have a joint sitting of all the 3 or 2 or 4 committees, so that this person appears and you jointly ask all the questions.
It sounds pretty, simple to be able to sort, no?
Well, it is. It's being made to sound like it's complicated. In my mind,
it really isn't.
The complication is the lack of clarity.
Yeah.
And in the absence of that clarity, then it will appear like there is a big problem.
And
whereas the reality may be there is no problem.
True.
Time for us to take another quick break. It's 6:45. Time for a break. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Are you reading your Standard e-paper as we take this break? Well, you should. If you have a telecom line, you can actually access the Standard e-paper, and it's for 20 shillings daily. Just dial *550*1#. That's *550*1# for 20 bob daily. You'll be able to access the Standard e-paper, or if you're in the Nairobi, you can also access it by just dialing *550*2#, or if you're on the inside magazine pullouts like the Financial Standard today, *550*3#. All of these gotten from your mobile airtime, and it's renewable on a daily basis. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial *811*795# to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 6:45. Very good morning to you. See, what are you looking at? That's very interesting.
I'm looking at this particular story, and I find, Safaricom fined for declining to hire blind man.
Okay.
Right. Safaricom has been ordered to pay a blind man, a person with,
visual disability.
And impairment. 6 million Kenyan shillings as compensation for failing to hire him as a customer care executive on grounds that the company lacked software to aid his work.
Right.
Now, Justice Macau said this. The gentleman's name is Mr. Macharia, Wilson Macharia. Okay? This is what Justice Macau had to say. I find that the respondents excuse that they didn't have the software, an afterthought that was introduced after the determination. Let me turn the pages so that I can get the story properly. Of the petitioner. The respondent knew right from the beginning that the petitioner's work called for software, yet they took him through all recruitment steps. The argument by Safaricom is that, but we invited him for the interview and we interviewed him. Said, yeah, but he even had a contract. Said, yes, so when you're doing all these things, you did not know that because he's blind and will require software. Pay the man 6 million shillings and stop joking.
So the defense was, but we took him through the interview.
We said, stop joking.
We did not discriminate in terms of shortlisting.
You knew very well that as a blind person, he would...
You did not have the capacity to hire him.
Yes.
Furthermore, he's not the first one that they would have had visual impairment.
No.
He's not.
No. So,
Are there others working in the customer service department?
Yes.
So they have equipment?
Yes. This is what is confusing me here. Visual impairment, that they have this equipment that they would use. Is this individual 100% legally blind?
He is, but he's also an ICT graduate, by the way, just so that you understand.
No, because he's not the first person to be hired in the customer care department that has visual impairment. There are others that exist. That's why I'm a bit confused.
Yes, and what you're saying is actually true. The account in this particular article also states that the shortlisting included other persons living with disabilities.
There you go.
Yes.
Were the others hired?
No. Yes. No. You see, disability. His disability was his vision.
Yes.
Okay. The others may have other disabilities that had
disabilities.
nothing to do with the vision. Yes.
That may not have required this special equipment. Hey, okay. Some business news. Some big moves are happening. Are happening in the country. A new system to facilitate end-to-end information flow and reduce delay of ships docking at the port of Mombasa has been rolled out. It's called the Maritime Single Window System, MSWS, which will facilitate sharing of information between shipping agents, port authorities, and other state agencies to reduce delays. Stakeholders are saying the system will enhance ship turnaround times, which will increase port productivity and fast movement of cargo to and from the ports. This thing went live on the 2nd of June and it will be run by the Kenya Trade Network Agency, KenTrade. It will introduce electronic information exchange between ships and land-based agencies. Now, KenTrade is this organization that was formed a couple of years back, which is nestled in the Treasury, which its main brief is to ensure trade facilitation. They have another single window where when you're importing and you're exporting, and you need to deal with all those agencies. You need to deal with KRA, you need to deal with the clearing agency, the KPA, and all the others. You just operate from a single window at your fingertips. If you need to pay, you make the payments. You just go and click and click and click, and you clear your goods without having to move from office to office. Now, them introducing this one for Maritime Single Window, which facilitates now the conversation between ships and agents and the port authorities, this also makes work much easier. A lot of good happens as a lot of bad happens at the same time in this country. And it's important to also highlight the good.
I think so. But even as you're talking about a lot of good and bad happening, unfortunately, there's an alarm over the rise of child kidnappings. We talked I believe it was a couple of months ago, about missing children. There was a day that was dedicated to this. We spoke about it with the government, but there is an alarm now, and as there should have been when we started to see a rise, when you even heard of one disappeared without a trace. In the past few months, there have been growing appeals on social media about missing family members, but that seems to be as far as it goes. More disturbing, however, is that the perpetrators of these abductions, torture, and murders have also increasingly been targeting innocent, defenseless children. I mean, I think you've seen it in the WhatsApp groups that you are in, social media. A day would not pass where, there would be an appeal in case you've seen a particular child. They go missing. One family in Zimmerman, for example, talking about the fact that they cannot find their child. And more across board, 2 disappearances in the last 2 weeks. But many more children have vanished, leaving families in anguish. At least 61 children were reported missing between March and May 2021. Although some 33 were found, with the whereabouts of the rest unknown, Missing Child Kenya, a non-governmental organization, says there is growing concern that a criminal network could be stealing the children. In the past 2 months, there have been growing appeals on social media over missing children, but that seems to be as far as it goes. Recent cases of missing children have caused great concern among parents in Nairobi. Every other day, it seems, another picture is posted of a young son, daughter, cousin, or sibling who has disappeared. More disturbing, however, is that the perpetrators of these abductions, torture, and murders have also increasingly been targeting defenseless children. The fears are not misplaced, though, and giving the horrific ending to the kidnap, like that of Chantel Nzembi, who was killed a few weeks ago. And, so the alarm bells are being sounded now, that you need to be really careful in terms of the whereabouts of your children. But crime is becoming bolder and bolder in that children are being abducted and being kidnapped and being asked for ransom.
So there are cases of kidnapping and ransom, and there's cases of kidnapping and disappearance.
Yes.
And there's cases of kidnapping and children being found murdered.
Yes.
Because now they're saying between 2016 and 2020, 780 children were reported missing. Of those, 496 were found and reunited with their families. 73 were taken to government-run children's homes. 21 were found dead. And 190 are still missing.
Still missing.
190 are still missing. That's a very high number. And even with just recent statistics of 131 children found and reunited with their families, I mean, that's a high number of children just disappearing.
It is a very high number, and it's very worrying. On Saturday, just this past Saturday, there was a story that went crazy. There's a gentleman in a matatu, and there was a child with this woman who was assumed was her mother. But this child cried throughout the trip.
It was from Rongai to town.
To Ngong to town.
It was Ngong to town.
Cried throughout the trip. And it was clear that this woman did not know the name of this child. And so people in the matatu got a bit worried. Hold on a minute. This child is crying in this manner and you don't even know their name. And this child was trying to get away from this woman. So one of the gentlemen in the matatu said, absolutely not. Let's go to the police station. Turned out this woman was trying to steal this child. So how many more of those happen where people could, it's unbeknownst to them what is going on. Children are being taken like this. And now we've seen more and more where domestic workers are taking children and looking for money in terms of a ransom, It's becoming bolder and bolder. And I think
it's a growth industry.
Absolutely. This is what it looks like. In as much as vigilance is being required on the part of everyone, the crime, I believe, is growing. The crime syndicate is really growing.
It is.
Do you know, we are seeing kidnapping, right? In Nigeria, it long became an established mode of commerce. Long. But you're talking about that, look at the larger picture of human trafficking, okay? Now, in this country, I am of this particular view. The lawlessness that our leaders have treated us to is actually taking root. So that everyone in their own little way is looking for a loophole to pursue a life of commerce, which is completely criminal. Now, people think that the power of example is something that shouldn't be spoken of, but it must. And as things go right now, these things aren't going to reduce. As far as I'm concerned, they will increase. Do you remember this story? We had this gentleman, the whistleblower, from Masai Mara University.
Yeah.
Page 5 of the Business Daily, the university has responded. And they have said in summary that during this gentleman's tenure in his office, there was alleged, and it's reported here alleged, that he, one, withdrew 85 million Kenya shillings that was questionable.
Right.
Okay. He drove fancy cars.
Okay.
Allegation, according to this report. Allegation again, he owned a restaurant in Narok town. His lifestyle was beyond the salary that
known sources of income.
Again, alleged.
Right.
There is nothing in this article that indicates that they have evidence to support what is actually being said. Yes. Now,
so this is what the University Council now responding.
Well,
and saying they conducted a lifestyle audit and some investigation into the man, into the gentleman.
Yes, this is the University Council chairman, Mr. Kennedy Olekerai. This is these statements are being attributed to.
And that would be the reason why
Plot
he
twist.
his
if you
work
just
was
hear
terminated.
that without anything else, that is absolutely good reason to terminate.
So he was terminated because of that.
There's
so all this
missing
other,
85 million
withdrawn
without clear understanding. Then your lifestyle audit shows that you are living a life beyond your known means. As a responsible employer, take action. I like the plot twists.
Yeah, and many would ask, though.
Let the manner continue.
Sure, many would ask, though, then, why did this not come out previously?
When was previous?
As soon as he blew the whistle.
Or even as when he was...
maybe that's what
himself
triggered.
Was not privy to this information that they're getting rid of him because of ABCD. His letter did not state anything to that effect. It should have been given as the reason as to why we are getting rid of you is because we've seen 1, 2, 3 of questionable character.
Alleged, even when we heard reports of him being removed from the office he was in.
Yeah. This did not come out.
This is what ought to have come out in the first place. That, you are being suspended, you're being put, whatever.
Because of 1, 2, 3.
4.
You know what? That information is coming out. Whenever it's coming out, let it go to its logical conclusion. If indeed there are questions to be asked of the gentleman, he'll respond to the questions. If there are none, it'll be very clear that there is absolutely nothing. This is nothing at all that the University Council is presenting. That a University Council could actually cook up an issue of transfer of money and cook up a lifestyle audit will also be blown out of the water. If indeed there is nothing to it, let it continue. It's a good thing. Let it continue. We'll be having a conversation about South Africa later. Protests in South Africa as Zuma challenges sentence. Deadly riots are continuing in South Africa as jailed former President Jacob Zuma challenges his sentence at a hearing in the country's top court. Footage has emerged showing people looting shops, setting fire to buildings. Other videos coming out of communities saying we are going to protect ourselves, we are arming ourselves, we are taking the law into our own hands. This thing is just getting out of hand, left, right, and center. And what's coming out from Mr. Zuma? Well, maybe he's incarcerated, maybe he has no access to news and he doesn't know what's happening. But those who are close to him, what are they saying? His children, for example. He's very close and powerful supporters. What are they saying?
As far as they're concerned, he's being victimized.
Yes.
As far as they're concerned.
So they are not calling out anything that's going on. They see nothing wrong.
Condemning the riots and things? No, they're not. They're not.
No.
All right. So we'll have a conversation about the UK government and the cooperation between Kenya and the United Kingdom. A number of things that are happening. One, there's support in fight against COVID-19. Two, there's the issue of making it easier for students and others to go to the UK, live and work. Three, there's an entire issue of education and the support of the education sector in Kenya. President Uhuru Kenyatta will be going to the UK later this month, and they'll be having some meetings with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. They will be launching some education initiative. That and more coming up shortly with the Deputy High Commissioner of the United Kingdom. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. University of Nairobi Vice Chancellor Peter Kiama, while responding to the recent changes in the institution, which include removal of courses and increased fees, says the fees won't affect the current university students as they are going to find ways to borrow funds.
There is no fees going to be charged for a student who is admitted by University of Nairobi. We will continue to absorb that deficit. We will have to look for how to resolve that one. Because it is us, it's not the student responsibility. It is our responsibility. So if we admitted you as Trevor to this program and we told you come and you pay 20,000 shillings, we will train you. Wherever we get money from, we continue borrowing like the way we are doing now. But moving forward, we want to say, no, let us think for a student who come, we have to engage them.
He further says the removal of courses is due to the low number of students taking them up.
The number of students you are graduating, therefore, when you look, you are incurring more costs than what you are collecting from those. Others have not admitted students for some time. The problem is that if we have a program which is not admitting students, there is a risk. Because you can only know that it will not admit students after the closing date.
This comes as the students had issued a 48-hour ultimatum for the institution to review tuition fees hiked by 118%. Elsewhere, LSK President Nelson Harvey could face assault charges after he allegedly injured CEO Matthew Wambua at their Gatanga Road-based offices during a meeting. A police report at Mudangari station shows Wambua reported her right arm and finger were hurt during a scuffle that erupted during the heated meeting.
I feel harassed, I feel bullied, and my hand is painful. My finger can't actually stretch, and this is not actually the first time this is happening. Even on Friday, he attempted to assault me.
She sought to interrupt that meeting, whereafter we asked her to leave. And when she insisted to continue with an online meeting, I told her, Masi Kalondu Wambua, you will leave the meeting. And I closed her laptop, opened the door, whereafter she stood up and went.
More than half of Kenyan police officers like policing but are not satisfied with their jobs. The Policing Service Delivery Performance Survey shows if a complaint is lodged against the police, they there is only a 35% chance it will be investigated. The survey further indicates that 73% of the officers surveyed said they don't get enough time with their families and friends. The lowest rated area was in salary, allowance and benefits with a score of 13%, while the highest rating was in satisfaction with their supervisor with a score of 81%. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, an accident right around Kangemi and it's heading towards Kianda School. Be very careful as you approach that area. Please drive with caution because it is causing some traffic and we don't want to get into that mess, do we? No. So please be very careful headed in that direction. We also see visibility is quite poor right there because of the fog that's also quite low. So take that into consideration. Mombasa Road at Daystar University headed out towards Machakos. That looks fine. Into the city as well. Doesn't look too bad at the moment. All right, let's look at Jogo Road heading out into the city connecting with Landis. It's looking quite slow now. Industrial area is jam-packed. Don't even think about it. And if you are in the middle of it, coming out towards the Lekoni Exchange or Mombasa Road, not moving too slowly right now, but it's moving, so that's good. Thika Road, that's a totally different story. Coming and joining with Kiambu Road, heading out towards the Muthaiga Square, towards the Pangani underpass then is slow this morning. All in a day's work. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Talk to us if you do get stuck. SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, it's 5 minutes after 7. A very good morning to you wherever you're tuned in the country or outside the country. We are glad that you're with us on SpiceFM or online, SpiceFM.ke, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. From Nairobi to the world. C.T. Muga as we begin the hour. Today's proverb.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
Yes. You know, you'd ask the question, what happens when it overflows? That's growth.
Uh-huh.
That's expansion. Something that, you see, the flow of water that may be not even a rivulet, just a small stream, given time, it grows and it stops being a stream. It stops being a rivulet. It becomes a river. And then now when you're talking river, you're talking the size of the river. Yeah, so it keeps growing. It keeps growing.
As it goes?
Yes, it keeps growing.
Okay. No matter how?
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow. It's a Congolese proverb.
All right, a nice one. Let's welcome our guests in the studio now. We are joined by the Deputy UK High Commissioner to Kenya, who's also permanent representative to UNEP and UN Habitat, Ambassador Josephine Gold. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you in the Situation Room. Make yourself comfortable. Familiarize yourself with the surroundings. We'll be taking off shortly. We call that the hot seat. We'll just warm it up for you a little bit as we have the conversation as we continue. But it's good to have you in the Situation Room. You recently took up this job as the Deputy High Commissioner.
Yes, I arrived in January.
All right. And where did you come from?
I came from Côte d'Ivoire. So I was the ambassador in Côte d'Ivoire for the last 4.5 years.
Okay. Worked in Africa a number of years then.
I've also worked in Congo, Listening to your proverb, they do have a very big river there, so you can see where they're coming from, and Nigeria, and quite a lot more in West Africa.
Quite a tour in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Good. This is the better country of all those.
It wouldn't be diplomatic to judge.
It would not, and I know why he's saying this, because I am Nigerian. So he here is, it was at me that he was doing that. But don't worry, we'll deal with that later.
So this is, in fact, the West African side of the table.
Voila.
That's not a very diplomatic thing to say. Taking sides, So a number of things that are happening between Kenya and UK. I mean, the relations between Kenya and the UK are well known. The cooperation and support that we give one another is also well known. There's something that you recently announced as the UK High Commission, the UK government, in terms of the support given to the Kenyan government through KEMRI in response to COVID-19. You could just tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. So last Thursday we announced that we'd be able to start a program which we're calling the New Variant Genomic Sequencing Platform, which is not a very catchy name. But the aim of that is to provide some capacity building, extra equipment, training, and quite a lot of, sort of technical assistance to help KEMRI do more of the genomic sequencing. And that's important with COVID because it can help identify when there are new variants emerging and new varieties which might need a different kind of treatment or different kind of preventive measures. We've seen with some of the variants, like the Delta variant, that it's much more contagious. So it's really important to identify it, localize it, and try and contain it as early as possible.
KEMRI has actually been able to do just that, genome sequencing. So am I to understand that with this support, the equipment that is going to be provided, let's call it support, the technical support that is going to be provided, that the capacity of KEMRI will be at the same level as some of the international bodies that do this sort of thing? Is that the aim? Is that the goal?
So yeah, as you say, KEMRI has been doing this since the beginning. I think they've been doing a lot. So I think the aim is to ensure that they can process more, they can sequence more samples.
Essentially increase their capacity.
Increase their capacity, and also ensure that they're doing it in across Kisumu, Nairobi, and at the coast. So then you get a much better overall picture. So it's kind of volume, speed, and spread.
See, I asked this because, one, there is a KEMRI center in Kilifi. It's called, it's known by its name, Wellcome Trust.
Yes.
Now, it's a big center. It's a very well-established center. It's a center that has been responsible for very many positive things in the country, increasing the capacity of knowledge and ensuring that people get a postgraduate education, and also just the research capacity. So that has been in existence. Now, having this as a background, are we then again saying that the capacity that's going to increase is, are you going to, when you work with KEMRI, you know that KEMRI has other partners. KEMRI has CDC as a partner. KEMRI has JICA as a partner. So are we saying that it will include these partners in the work that, or in this capacity building that you're going to do?
I think that'll be for KEMRI to organise. They'll organise how they work. We're all in this together. The whole COVID pandemic has been such a global experience. So, some of it is on a very practical basis, just providing extra reagents which can just help them sort of physically process this whole yeah. So it's providing the supplies as well, because there's a lot of consumables that get used up in this process. So I think we sat down with KEMRI and had a discussion saying what help would they like. So we sort of showed them the menu of what we could provide. They looked at what they would need, and then so it's very much been driven by what KEMRI says would be most useful to them.
Okay.
So this partnership is working with Public Health England, and the extension of the support. So how does Public Health England come into this? Are we talking about supplying equipment? Is it expertise? Is it sharing of information? Is it sending some samples to the UK? What does it actually entail practically?
Yeah, a mixture of things. So Public Health England is the sort of the agency in the UK which is leading on our sequencing in the UK. So as I was saying, that they've had these conversations with KEMRI, looking at where there is a kind of marriage of whether it's exchange of information, skill sharing, providing bits of supplies, whether they're going to be having meetings about methodologies, looking at new equipment that might be required. So it's going to be over a period of time. It's starting now, and we'll see how it evolves. But it's very much the aim is for it to be driven by what KEMRI says is going to be useful.
Okay.
So we're not saying what KEMRI needs. KEMRI are telling us what they need, and we're matching that where we can.
Okay. Is this a model? I mean, and just the last thing that you said in terms of making sure the needs and the wants are what comes out in terms of what should be used, as opposed to maybe previously previous practice where it was that we, of course, with the support then are saying you must operate in this manner. Now you're telling us what your needs are. Is this a model that can go forward and say we can actually use this in the future?
I would hope so. I mean, I don't know if that's going to, how that fits on a wider trajectory, but certainly I think, particularly around the whole COVID pandemic, we've all been learning together.
Yes.
So, it's new for all of us, and everyone's sort of priorities about how they can tackle it, what angle, whether it's sort of the economic, the health, there's a lot of balancing acts in that. So I think it does force all partners to listen to each other, to try and decide what's the right order of priorities to address issues.
The way the issue of COVID is being looked at, especially when you look at it from the vaccine side, is that there's a clear divide in the world. There's those that have and those that don't have. And the haves are accused of hoarding the vaccines, are accused of hoarding the science and the knowledge, are accused of not wanting to share with the have-nots. And when they want to share with the have-nots, it's with the implicit knowledge that they want to get something out of it. It's for their own benefit. So do you get that kind of pushback, for example, from just the vibe around when the UK, for example, says, so we're extending our support to this country and the other, or we're extending our cooperation with this country or the other, and then people are asking you, but you're not giving us the vaccines. That's what we need right now. You're not giving us what we need. What we need today is vaccines, and we are not able to access the vaccines because countries such as yourselves have taken up all the vaccines in the world.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think so. The vaccine development has been amazing for COVID. I mean, usually these things take years and years and years, yes. And it's happened really fast. And that, I mean, the UK again worked with Kenya and the Wellcome Trust quite specifically on part of the kind of research and development of the vaccine. And the other thing I think which has been quite important and will become increasingly important is the establishment of COVAX. So that, I mean, the UK was quite a big driver behind that and a kind of early funder. So the vaccines which are getting out there, I think in a lot of the developing world are coming through COVAX. So that's I think a great facility. It has been a real challenge, obviously, with the supply issue. I was having a conversation with someone from the WHO. They were explaining that one of the big issues is licensing the manufacturing facilities. So, there's a big old process that has to be gone through to make sure that everyone is manufacturing vaccines to the right standards, that they've got the right equipment, and everything. So that process takes quite a few months. And so I think we're going to see lots more production come online in the next few months. And hopefully we'll see that all unlocking, and then COVAX will really be able to sort of perform to the full strength. And the President Kenyatta has made a commitment to really push out the vaccines fast in Kenya, through the rest of this year. So hopefully we're going to start seeing that that spread of the vaccines around the world.
Therein, Your Excellency, lies the problem. Because on the one hand, what you're saying is absolutely clear and very easy to understand. But when you talk about capacity, we're looking at the AstraZeneca vaccine, for instance. UK. It's a UK product, but it's also being produced in India. all that is good. And India has a far bigger capacity for producing the vaccine. But suddenly we find that if you've been vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine from India, suddenly that particular vaccine isn't being given the same weight as the vaccine that is being produced in the UK when it comes to travel. Now, I understand this is just politics that is being played, but you see, it then dampens that whole spirit of expanding production and making the possibility of other countries being able to produce the vaccine. That whole process now becomes a bit wanting. You ask, why would we go into all these problems when it solves, yes, one problem, but it doesn't really solve, it doesn't provide the universality that a vaccine is supposed to provide.
No, I couldn't agree more. But that is a sort of the specific issue is an EU one, and now we're out of the EU. So, but I mean, as
it's why I asked the question, because I knew you're out of the EU and you can speak a little more bluntly on the subject. Yes,
they're still our friends and neighbours, though. So, but there's no. I mean, from what I've understood of this, and it's mostly been reading it in the media, as you will have done, that there does seem to be it's an administrative issue because the EU. When they announced the vaccines that they were going to be recognising for their travel, they just were looking internally. So they were looking primarily at travel between EU countries, first and foremost. And so they looked at the vaccines which had been used in the EU. I mean, if it doesn't change, it affects the UK as well, because we've also had quite a few doses of the Indian AstraZeneca. We've been using that in the UK as well as the UK produced AstraZeneca. So we are absolutely in the same boat as Kenya on that one. So we're very keen for that to be addressed. But no, it's one vaccine. It's the same vaccine. So different. And I mean, as I was saying before, that's why the controls are so rigorous about registering the factories or the laboratories which can produce vaccines, because they have to be to the same standard. So, certainly my assumption, I'm not a scientist, but is that it's the same vaccine.
You are an envoy and you've been in this for many years, so you understand the social side of things, and you also understand the political side of things. Now, if you look at that, at the push by the EU saying, we recognize this particular vaccine produced in this country, versus the push by the rest of the world in saying, allow the patents so that other people can produce. And then there's a push by the developing countries. For example, the president of Uganda has come out strongly to say, you know what, we want to pack our own vaccine here. The president of Kenya has also said we want to build our own capacity so that we can do our own vaccines from this country. Are you seeing some interconnection here between the geopolitics and business and protectionism?
Maybe, but but I think the whole discussion about producing, more vaccines in Africa is really great. But again, this is another thing a lesson that we've learned from COVID altogether, that the supply chains that we've been relying on, this kind of just-in-time supply chains, they broke down really quickly when international shipping was disrupted, when flight networks were disrupted. So I think that's really had a big impact on how people look at some of the kind of big economic questions and what's sustainable and what things are essential that you need to be able to have more dependable supply or be able to control your own supply issues. So it is really interesting. I think what also, the other big factor is how to ensure that these are economically viable. So intra-African trade and things like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement are going to be really important for that, because if you're going to have a big factory or a big laboratory, you've got to be able to have the markets to sell it to, whether it's through the UN vaccination programs or otherwise. So it doesn't feel like sort of viable necessarily for every single country to have their own production, but working that out and working out how to have develop that science capacity in countries is great.
Yeah, as you say that, I think also we cannot ignore the element of control that comes in a lot of these. Like we've seen economic control of the globe, for example, and this is it's played out. However you choose to interpret it, it's played out even now as we're looking at these vaccines. So I guess the uncomfortable question is that are those who have previously held economic control of things on the globe comfortable then with African countries or developing countries then producing and manufacturing their own vaccines?
Well, I think it's for the African countries too. I mean, it's all about having the scientific research in countries. There's fantastic universities in loads of countries. And I mean, it's creating amazing jobs and, I mean, really quality employment. And then you've got, you know, a whole different set of circumstances, different kind of tropical diseases, different, you know, having that, own that research. I think it's, you know, it's a space for the African countries, governments, science sectors to invest in. And you know, it's there for the taking.
We've always, I mean, been of the opinion that, yes, governments on this side of the pond, as it were, should then be a lot more bullish in terms of how these things are negotiated from the get-go. To say that, you know what, we're not standing on the outside and looking at what's going on inside, but we actually want to be part of the action, making the decision. And I guess that's where my previous question came from, is that it's always been that way, that we are delivered what to use or what to think. But here it's about time that, you know, it became part of the decision-making process.
I mean, I think a lot of this comes down to government policy. So, I mean, drawing on my sort of West African experience, the private sector is ready to step in. You know, we had lots and lots of companies were always wanting to come and invest. West Africa, it's, I mean, you've got Nigeria, which is the biggie, and then you've got, you know, but there's sort of, you know, several hundred million people there, so it's a good-sized market. I remember a company telling me that they were manufacturing pharmaceuticals in Ghana. They couldn't sell them to Cote d'Ivoire, which is just a few kilometres away. They had to export it to France and then re-import it from France and that was because of legislation, rules. So that's where I think government has loads of scope and potential to change things, looking at what are the restrictions in place, or what are the barriers to prevent the private sector coming in and investing in, you know, building these laboratories, creating these science research jobs, because I think the interest is there, but there are reasons why, you know, whether it's the cost of power, whether it's you know, looking at the kind of tax regimes. Yeah.
But what is it that would make, you know, governments have such policies? You know, for example, you know you don't have the capacity to produce whatever is being produced in a neighboring country, and you know that you'd benefit greatly if you imported directly from the neighboring country. But why still hold on to these policies that are protecting nothing that exists in your country, really?
There you have to ask the government. I think it's, I mean, there's always so many things to do, and some of these sort of legislative changes, and particularly around, you know, kind of big policies, it's a long process. So it's quite, you know, and as a politician, you're working on a kind of 4 or 5 year cycle, and sometimes you have to be, you know, it's quite a long planning, and you have to have sort of the industrial or the you know, these scientific development strategies over a sort of 10, 15 year period, because you've got to be making sure that the universities are producing the graduates who are going to fill those jobs. But I think maybe now that's something that people are, you know, it's more pertinent. People have seen the importance of being able to do that.
They can see that. Do you think what Ndu was alluding to earlier, the fact that yes, you are an independent republic, but then you also still have some appendages to some Western power, some former colonial master. Do you think that is also affecting the change in policy and legislation in some of these countries? So, for example, why would it be easier to import from France and not from your neighbor and your Cote d'Ivoire?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just sort of historic. It's historic setups, but it's I mean, as you said, independent countries. So, you know, it's for the countries to determine what they want to do. If you look at the American political system, there's always famous for having lobbyists. Yeah. You will have lobbyists everywhere. Yeah. You know, you might have you know, Western governments saying, "Oh no, keep this policy." It's not, you know, that's not impossible, but it's, you know, that it's the government of the day who sets the policy.
Your Excellency, you actually are very right, because if you look at the interest that, say, African countries have in research, that's the telling sign. For instance, 0.8% of our GDP is what our government allocates for research. Okay. Now, what is strange is that it's 95% higher than very many countries in sub-Saharan Africa.
It's 95% higher.
Yes. And it's 4 times higher than many low-income countries. Now, it's not a beautiful benchmark, but it's a reality. So if that is the priority you give research, because these things, by the way, when you talk about capacity being increased, you're actually in the field, you're in the realm of research. So if that is the interest that the governments take, their own funds are not available for research in their own country to benefit them, then what are we saying? Are we saying that they'd rather go with the narrative of looking for people to blame for the situation that they're in and looking for people who they believe ought to give them these things that they ought to actually get for themselves and for their citizenry? This is the reality of our situation. So, yes, our governments don't take these things too seriously.
I mean, the governments have every government in the world has so many competing demands. So it's it's always a juggle to work out.
You've put it beautifully and so diplomatic. So I don't have the burden of diplomacy as you do. So I can say it. Our governments do not take these things seriously. What they take seriously is increasing their capacity to beg.
It's just looking at how much of a begging bowl, how size,
this one isn't big enough. How can we expand this bowl so
instead
that we
of
can
thinking
beg?
of how you can build your own capacity?
Yes, you just build your own bowl, for heaven's sake, for your own need. Build this capacity for begging, make it bigger. That seems to be the priority that many of our leaders on this continent have.
And like the ambassador was saying, become truly independent.
Yes.
If you're independent, be independent, indeed. Right?
Oh, yes. You see, you're talking about independent. Again, selective. They will leave out the indie and just focus on the dependent. Yes.
Let's take a break now. We're having a conversation with Ambassador Josephine Gold. She's the Deputy High Commissioner to the UK to Kenya, also permanent representative to UNEP and UN Habitat. A number of things that are happening. Kenya, UK cooperation. We've just been discussing about the cooperation in the field of COVID-19, in the support that's been extended by the UK to KEMRI to look at how they can do genomic sequencing for the various variants in the country. After this, we'll look at, so what else is happening? For example, how easy is it for Kenyans to go and live and work in the UK or go and study in the UK? We'll be discussing this in the coming minutes. Good morning, Kenya's biggest conversation at 7:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo-soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort.
Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe. Hii ni umba special.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
The sun's out in Nairobi at 13, highs of 20, lows of 15 today through the day. Light rain in Nyeri, 13, going to highs of 21 and lows of 14. 14 will be the low in a chilly Nakuru at 13, currently going to highs of 22. 20 will be the high in Eldoret. It's raining at 11. Mostly cloudy conditions at 18 in Kisumu, going to highs of 26. 25 will be the high in Kakamega. It's raining at 18, and it's also raining in Mombasa at 23. Highs will be 28, coming back down to lows of just 23. 24 and rain showers in Malindi with highs of 28. 24 will be the high in Kampala, where it's mostly sunny this morning at 19. It's raining in Dar es Salaam at 22 with highs of 29. It'll come back down to lows of 22. Johannesburg is clear at 4 degrees. Today in Johannesburg, the low will be -3. 25 in Lagos, raining, going to highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 30 in Kinshasa. It's clear at 20, and that'll be the low for today as well.
Spice up your life.
So I'm being told Jogoo Road is a jungle. And you know what they say about the law of the jungle. So you can only stop at Hamza, and then it's going to slow down considerably. As you get to DC and Makongeni, much slower today. Headed out towards the City Stadium roundabout, it is going to take some time to get out of this one. It looks like jungle laws definitely are applying, but please do try and, behave on the roads today. Absolutely necessary. We have some hiccups on Thika Road as well. Very slow headed into the city, especially at the Pangani underpass. Things have gotten almost to a standstill, but we have to keep watch for that. I think Kiambu Road now, last time we checked, is at 4 lanes. Hopefully it doesn't get much longer than that. There was an accident on Thika Road near the Muthaiga footbridge on the service lane towards town, so that slows things down considerably as well. We're hoping for none, but voila, here we are. Hopefully we can get through without too much of an issue moving forward, right? Other parts of the city look all right. Langata Road getting into the city, Ngong Road as well. And then also coming out towards the city from Westlands doesn't look too terrible. Let's keep it that way, shall we? Talk to us. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the room, we have Eric Latif, Nduoko C.T. Muga, and Ambassador Josephine Gold. She's the Deputy High Commissioner of the UK to Kenya, and also permanent representative to UNEP and UN Habitat. We're talking about Kenya-UK cooperation. Ambassador, when finally it happened that Brexit has actually taken place after very many starts and stops, which is a case study which will be done later. However, when it finally happened, we saw, for example, our president going to the UK with a delegation and looking at, so what opportunities would there be for cooperation and direct dealings between Kenya and the UK? And one of them was, how can we then have better job opportunities and access of Kenyans to the UK? Now, have there been steps that have taken place here in terms of making it easier for Kenyans who would like to go and study in the UK, who would like to go and work in the UK?
Yeah, no. So we're in the process of trying to streamline all of our visa processes, and because I think everyone's aware that it can be quite complicated. And the new one we've just announced, so starting from the 1st of July, is a new scheme called the Graduate Visa Scheme. So this is specifically for people who have been studying in the UK. So if they've done an undergraduate degree, a master's, or a PhD, when they finish their studies. Whilst they're still in the UK, they can apply for a graduate visa, and that will give them an additional 2 years if they've done an undergrad or a master's, or they can apply for 3 years if they've done a PhD, and that enables them to stay on and work. And what's nice about it, what's a bit different, is that they don't need a sponsor. So usually if you're doing a work visa, you need an employer to be supporting your application. But this one, it's just on the basis of having graduated from your studies. You can then stay on, start looking for work. You can do any kind of job during that period. So people can stay just to have, spend a bit of extra time, or they can start doing their kind of professional development, looking for, starting their career, looking for the right kind of job to follow their studies.
What's the thinking behind this?
A lot of it, we realize a lot of people want to stay on. I mean, my personal perspective is on the UK jobs market is that, having lived in lots of countries, getting a job in the UK is relatively straightforward. In that it's quite a transparent process. You can apply, we've got very flexible, you can have temporary jobs, you can have sort of paid internships. So it's a really, I think lots of students, we've always wanted to welcome lots of international students to the UK. But lots of them, they finish their studies, they go back home, and they struggle to get that first job, because if your CV hasn't got professional experience as well as good academic experience, it can be really hard to get your foot in the door. So it's a really good way of just giving that, offering a bit more. So it makes, I think from our self-interested side, it makes studying in the UK a little bit more attractive as well, because it gives you, that additional bit. we're interested in having some of these young graduates work as well. I mean, it's a great sort of addition to the labour force. And I think there was just a real demand for it.
Has Brexit changed the human resource factor in the UK?
It has. And the other thing it means is that all of the international students are being treated the same. So if you're an American student, a Kenyan student, a German student, you can apply for this graduate visa scheme. But there's no sort of privileged access for European students compared to say, a Kenyan student.
You see, why I ask, and why I'm thinking of the job market is, with the EU, anyone who was in the EU had a certain ease with which they could actually get employment and enjoy the facilities of this one Europe. Now, once Britain moved away from Brexit, I believe that particular access ceased, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so we don't have that same freedom of movement, right to work in each other's
This
countries.
is what I want to understand. So does it mean that people who are European and who worked in the UK, did they then have to leave the UK to go back wherever they came from? How did this work out?
No, anyone who was there and who wanted to stay could just apply to stay. So that has been a fairly straightforward process. So they can, so that was, they just had to submit a request to stay. Anyone wanting to come now, they can still travel, but if they want to settle or to work, they would need to apply.
Like everybody else.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So the graduate visa scheme, does it allow you to apply for work while you're still studying, or must you graduate first?
So you need to graduate because the institution where you were studying needs to confirm that you have completed your studies.
Okay.
So that's the key bit, and you need to apply whilst you're still in the UK. So usually it's in the sort of summer period or so after you graduate, and then you have. Yeah, and then you can start your 2 years. If during that time you find a job and you want to stay on, and your employer wants to keep you, then you can apply to have a sort of skilled worker visa to extend it. But the actual graduate one, it's completely open in terms of whatever work you do, and it's just the applicant is applying for it without an employer backing them up.
There's always the issue of, or rather the diversity factor that comes in. I mean, it does great for a country whereby you're able to educate people from around the globe. How far does this play in this? In as much as we're saying, okay, fine, educating people from different parts of the world, but in terms of the diversity factor, to say then that the UK then has been able to train a number of people from around the world. How far does this play?
I think it works both ways. So I think there's a really interesting cultural exchange which comes about through this. So for students who are staying on to work in the UK, they're getting a whole experience of a particular kind of working environment, for better or for worse, which they can then, if they come home again, and they can then apply that, giving a different perspective. And we're also benefiting from having those different perspectives, different cultures, different approaches to work. So it does create a really interesting sort of, you avoid groupthink, way to avoid groupthink. And then what we always love is the fact that you have lots of alumni from the UK universities. You find them all around the world. I mean, that's a kind of a great network, and then you have this sort of international resource of people who can researching together, working together.
I've always admired the ingenuity that was behind the forming of the Commonwealth. Here you have a country that colonized other countries. They get their independence, but they're able to maintain a favored relationship with them. It takes some thinking and some doing. So that even if there was rancor, even if there was ill will, somehow over time that manages to dissipate. And you become a trusted ally, as opposed to being considered a foe who meted a lot of ill in the country. There's a reason why I'm giving this background. See, I am thinking of how support such as the one we started off with helps forge that very useful symbiotic relationship that countries can have But now my question. When I look at not just Kenya, but the Horn of Africa, okay, and I look at the positioning of Kenya, I look at the sort of pressure that the US, for instance, has always put on the assistance that they give to other countries, and let me, for lack of a better expression, they've moralized that assistance, okay? Does the UK also subscribe to that particular norm?
Well, we had a sort of International Development Act some years ago. So when Claire Short and Gordon Brown, I think they were the real instigators of it many years ago. And that part of the principle of that was to make sure that aid was untied. It was all, and really focusing on, at the time it was the Millennium Development Goals. And I think, we've got the Sustainable Development Goals, but it's that's the real driver. And I think we've seen really, significant impact with that kind of approach. So you've got organisations, or alliances like Gavi as well, which is really focused in on particular issues and saying that these are some of the real kind of challenges in society, and if we put our mind to them, we can address them and eradicate them. Which is like eradicating or nearly eradicating things like polio and things like that. It needs a concerted international effort, and I think we've always been big subscribers to that kind of approach.
You see why I mention it is because one of the discussions that is actually taking place, whether it's the G8, G7, G20, has been the incursion and the very fast marching forward that China has made specifically on this particular continent. And the discussion has always been around the aid that the Chinese give. It's unfettered. It doesn't have what the IMF refer to as conditionalities. And one can actually see visibly, you can see the progression and the impact that is making. And I would assume that countries that have had relationships with this continent for the longest time would perhaps take note of this advancement and take a different view to the way they go about offering assistance and being development partners.
Well, I think every country's got a very, we've got different structures, different approaches, and different sort of specialities. I think across Africa we see a lot of huge infrastructure projects, and it's and it's lots of Chinese firms which are delivering them. That's what they're really strong at. I mean, the UK, we do some big construction projects, but it's we would struggle to compete with China on some of those. But where we would our sort of specialisms would be more like in some of the sort of engineering dimensions or some of the kind of technical aspects. And I think again, it's where it's governments, designing the sort of development strategy for their own country. They can pick and mix who is the partner they want to work with for different aspects. We have a different historical relationship, and I think we're all bringing different things to the table. So the different offers are there. It's not. There's a degree of competition because it's there's sort of commercial elements as well, and there's the trade dimension. Yeah. But also, it's this is how every country operates. You choose your partners for a variety of reasons, whether you trust them, you've got history, or there's sort of a mutually beneficial relationship.
It's true, but you see, I'm coming from the perspective that when you have a relationship with a continent, it's an advantage. And I am actually saying that advantage is being lost. That's what I'm saying.
I think there's probably a lot more competition. So and absolutely. I mean, we really value our relationship. It's it's a long one we have with Kenya and with all the countries in the Commonwealth, and we can see that there's. When I lived in Nigeria, there was a real kind of familiarity with the UK amongst lots of Nigerians because they had family there. These ties are strong. So, also from the human dimension, we kind of want to keep encouraging those. But it's a big world out there. Everyone is everyone sees Africa as an exciting continent.
It's a big cake.
It's a big cake, but it's where you've got the young people. You've got there's a lot of energy and dynamism. So.
What would you say to those? I mean, you look at it from, and I think this is brilliant. You look at it from to continue the camaraderie, to continue the relationship that had previously existed. There's the other side of it that looks at it as though you're looking at neo-colonialism all over again. That to say, okay, well, where we had resources in the early part of the century, today we have another kind of resource in human beings, the young people that you're talking about. So somebody may look at it in a totally different light and say, well, it's just what happened, in the early 1900s happening again. What would you say about that?
Everyone can have, there's many perspectives you can take, but I think there's a lot more agency now. So I think that's the big change. For example, in the Commonwealth, we're all there as equal partners. So it's the relationships are very different. So I would like to think that there's a choice being exercised.
In your experience, having worked in as a diplomat, and your expertise in this, have you noticed like there's been a remarkable shift in the relations between the developed world and Africa, for instance, in terms of how you want to approach it? There's a time when it was all, gang-ho, we're coming in, we're telling you what to do. There's a time when it was all, okay, we'd like you to think about doing things this way so that we can support you. Is that changing?
I think it changes all the time, and it's a little bit, sometimes it's hard in the moment to see how it's changing. If you step back, you had all the kind of structural adjustment programs, you had sort of industrialization strategies, it keeps evolving. Not sure where we are at the moment. And Africa is a diverse a continent as Latin America or Europe or anywhere else. So, the nature of relationships varies across the piece.
How easy is it now, or are there plans to make it easier for Kenyans who would like to go and work in the UK? There's also this talk, again, during the president's visit, about making it much easier for Kenyans who are skilled technically to be able to access job employment opportunities in the UK. Is it easier? Is it getting easier? Is it going to get easier?
I think it will get easier because we're trying to introduce a kind of points-based system, which a lot of other countries use already. So it's quite clear. And as someone who wants to apply to go and work for a period in the UK, they can see up front whether they've got the necessary, whether it's a question of qualifications, there'll be a whole series of things. So, and we've lifted some of the caps as well. There used to be a cap on the number of skilled people who could apply via the skilled worker route, and that's been lifted. And we've reduced as well the minimum salary because it used to be quite a high salary, about £35,000, I think, give or take. And now it's down to £26,000 as the minimum salary. So that's a good salary, but it's a sort of average salary. And then there's going to be certain sectors where it's more flexible still. So particularly around healthcare workers. So that's the sort of a big area where there's going to be a lot. It's going to be easier, I think, to go. And quite often people like to have that sort of professional experience to be able to go and work abroad for a period and then return back with that, having developed their skills or whatever. So.
There's concern though that you see during that whole run up to the referendum for Brexit, there are those who are pushing using the angle that people from Eastern Europe have come and taken over and taken our jobs. And now here we're talking about people with skills from other parts of the world going to live and work in the UK. Do you see a repeat of this a couple of years down the line? Now this time it will not be people from Eastern Europe, it will be people from Africa.
I would really hope not. And I think, that whole debate about people from Eastern Europe, it was, in the kind of middle of a referendum, it was a very kind of heated political debate. And a lot of that is, some of the stories are not necessarily backed up by the data either. There were people there doing jobs because the jobs were there to be done, and I think that's, it's a little. I think it was, quite political.
UK is out of Brexit, out of EU, and Africa is trying to get its trade setup organized. there's the Africa Free Trade area. That whole discussion, and there's a push for it by the AU. Okay, now our president has gone to the UK. He's going to the UK again, isn't he?
He is.
Yes. But I'm sure even before going, there are talks that are ongoing. See, this is the benefit of having long relations with someone. You can always pick up where you last left and continue chatting. But how will, well, maybe it's a long question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The Africa Free Trade Area presents itself to be the vehicle that would benefit the African countries that are part of it a great deal, because it gives them the power of numbers when it comes to negotiating trade deals, as opposed to an individual country negotiating. Okay. The UK's position on this.
We are very supportive of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. So we have opted out of the EU one, but I mean that's not because we. There's a whole host of reasons. I'm sure you all followed the referendum and that discussion. So, but we are big supporters of global trade and maximising. Obviously, we've always been a trading nation. So I think we see the big advantages, but also for more
One could also might actually argue that you more or less invented global trade.
Well, amongst others, we were. The Netherlands was also big on that too, but it was. So I mean, intra-African trade. Again, we were talking about with the kind of pharmaceutical industries, just increasing the size of some of those markets, giving potential for sort of bigger expansion. So I think we are big supporters of the concept, and.
But to what extent? I mean, from the UK experience, to what extent would you support that? Is it to an entire confederation? Like, there's been talk within the East African community of making it, a free trade, making it a one people, making it, common currency, even having a political federation. Would it be, looking with the UK's experience, would it be a way to go?
I mean, these are real questions for each bloc. So, West Africa, again, you've got ECOWAS, you've got the UEMOA, which is there's 8 countries have got a common currency of the Francophone ones. There's a lot more integration in West Africa. Between, you've got the free movement of people. So any West African can go and work in any one of the 15 member states. So there are African experiences, I think, of these of working together more closely. Each of the regional economic blocs has a slightly different take on things. Yeah. I mean, those are the biggies. Those are the big questions. That's that's a lot of the arguments around
Everybody
Brexit.
learns, takes your own lesson, and you move with it.
Yeah, and you've got to go as far as you're comfortable with, and it's a process. Yeah.
Ambassador Gold, we have 5 minutes to the end of the show today, end of our interview. Tell us about this deal between Kenya and the UK in terms of education. The president will be meeting with your prime minister. A couple of months back, we saw them having a video conference with our president in a school and your prime minister in a school. What's this all about?
So President Kenyatta is going to the UK at the end of July, and because the UK and Kenya are co-hosting the Global Partnership for Education Summit. So this is the Global Partnership for Education has been running for a number of years now, and it's all about investing in primary and early secondary education. So that's the key thing. And so Kenya and the UK have been working on this together, and we are trying now to raise an additional $5 billion to sort of to replenish this fund. Kenya is sort of both a beneficiary of the program. So there's been money invested from this program in Kenya to support education, as well as being a champion. So we're trying to get some of the wealthy nations to invest in the fund, and also get developing countries to commit to spending 20% of government expenditure on education.
What's this $5 billion going to be used for?
It's going to be used for improving the outcomes of education. I think that's a really key one, because we're doing quite well at getting kids into school. There's more that can be done, but a huge number, I mean, up to perhaps 90% of kids can leave school in developing countries without, or they reach the age of 10 without being really able to read.
Without an
read and
education.
write.
Can go to
They've
school and
been
leave
in
without an
school,
education.
yeah, but they don't. So it's saying, all right, we're getting the kids in schools, we're going to have the teachers there, but what are the teaching methodologies? So for example, in Kenya, sort of for GPA, there've been training teachers in new teaching methodologies, ensuring kids have got textbooks, so that each child has access to a textbook, and trying to have a goal that not only you're keeping girls and boys in school, but also that by the age of 10 they should all be able to read and understand a kind of basic story.
So literacy goals.
Yeah, literacy goals. So just making sure that that they are getting an education as part of it.
Right. So say goodbye to our audience and tell them. So there are those who are listening and they're wondering, all right, so we've seen, for example, Kenya being put in the red list by the UK. We cannot access your country. Talk to people. Tell them what you'd like them to know about the UK and its relations with the country.
So, at the moment, I think COVID has had a big impact on global travel, and how we all can move around. So we have the red list is in place for over, I think it's 44 countries at the moment are covered by the UK's red list.
Yeah.
And that's been a decision by our government to really protect the sort of UK public health at the moment. It's not a political decision. We absolutely value our relationship with Kenya, and we are, working to see what we can do to ensure that we can get back to normal as soon as possible.
All right. Asante sana for joining us. We hope you had a comfortable stay with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Ambassador Josephine Gold is the Deputy High Commissioner of the UK to Kenya and also Permanent Representative to UNEP and UN Habitat. We've talked about very many things on diplomacy, on the UK-Kenya relations, on Africa and all. We hope to have you again on the show soon.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you.
Keep it right here. We have more conversations coming up. So we are expecting how many doses of vaccines by end of August? 23 million.
23 million.
Right, 23 million. And 13 million of those Johnson & Johnson. That means one single shot. 10 million AstraZeneca. That's double shot. So we're talking about 13 plus 5 million people being vaccinated.
Yep,
in coming.
million people.
Hey, good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The hearing of Migori Governor Okoth Obado and two others over the murder of university student Sharon Otieno today enters the second day. This is after gruesome details of the unborn child Sharon Otieno was carrying when she was murdered revealed that the child suffered stab wounds on its upper belly. Government pathologist Johansen Odor gave details of the post-mortem.
I formed the opinion that the cause of death of the late Sharon was severe hemorrhage due to penetrating force trauma. Also of note were features of manual strangulation.
So it entered through here, from the direction, and then it came out through here.
Yes. So I form an opinion that the late baby Sharon died because of sharp abdominal trauma.
Also, the inquest into the death of Tekra Muigai resumes today at the Milimani Magistrates Court. Today's highlights will include the testimony by medical experts who examined the late Tekra before and after her death. Among the experts are Government Chief Pathologist Johansen Odor and pathologists Andrew Kanyi and Emily Adhiambo. The court will also hear testimonies from the doctors who examined the late in Lamu before she was airlifted to Nairobi. Also expected to testify are three Lamu residents who are reported to have seen her fast at the scene where Tekra got the injuries that caused her death. Days after the University of Nairobi announced new changes in its administration in a major restructuring move aimed to cut costs, Vice-Chancellor Stephen Kiama, while speaking at a local TV station, says despite the abolishing of 24 colleges, all staff will be retained and transferred to other institutions.
Because you see there has been anxiety. They're saying, oh, people are going to be sacked, people are going to be doing... No. That is not the intention. Because we have had so many offices. So you end up having one office that does not have a secretary, another one has two, another one has this, and then you have to look and see, this is where you need to have more staff. So you bring these ones here, you bring here. Remove this structure here, bring this one here. So there is not a document.
Kiama further says that he's surprised that stakeholders insist that they weren't engaged in the changes.
We engaged, even today, the whole day, we met unions with the full council, just to ensure that everybody is on the same plate. We don't get surprised. And also, in the act itself, it also provides that every academic member of staff is free to comment on any issue.
And finally, more than 50 people have died after a fire broke out in a coronavirus isolation ward at a hospital in Iraq. The blaze at the Al Hussein Hospital in the southern city of Nasiriyah was, however, brought under control. The cause of fire is unclear, but initial reports suggest it began after an oxygen tank exploded. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
All right, what are we looking at this morning? Thika Superhighway, Juja Road, coming out into the city centre, Kiambu Road. There's a bit of a mess today. Mombasa Road, however, doesn't look too bad. Traffic is moving along slowly, but it looks pretty good. The ICD route out towards the southern bypass, giving us some good vibes today. Traffic is not a mess as it was yesterday, so hopefully we keep it that way. Yes. Langata Road coming into the city, Ngong Road as well, as you then join the different roundabouts. I think it looks pretty good. Not to forget that inbound and outbound on Uhuru Highway is going to take you some time, as usually is the case. But the sun is out and things are looking up. So let's try and keep it that way. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, just in case you get stuck somewhere. You find a good route that folks don't know about, share that, will you? Text as well, 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5 minutes
the
after
only
8.
way to
Very
start
good
your
morning
day.
to you on this 13th day of July 2021. Welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is The Situation Room. We begin the hour with the day's proverb. C.T. Muga.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically that's telling you, if a river still wants to grow, despite being full, sembuse wewe. How much wealth is enough? It's never enough.
Never satisfied.
No matter how much you have,
You still want more.
you still want more. Is that an appropriate interpretation?
That is certainly an extremely appropriate interpretation.
Well done,
among
Eric.
other appropriate interpretations.
Okay. Let's welcome our guest for this hour, and this is Dr. Willie Sahwale. He is the chairman of the COVID vaccine deployment task force that was established by the Minister for Health, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, in preparation for the rolling out of the vaccines. Vaccines came, and we're expecting more vaccines. We'll have a conversation about that this hour. We want to say a very good morning and welcome to our audience on KTN Home who are joining us now. You'll be with us for this 1 hour. This is your radio experience on TV. Dr. Ahwale, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Eric.
Karibu sana. Welcome to the Situation Room. You're occupying a very warm seat for now, but we'll just make sure that we maintain the temperatures. It's cold outside, so it's important that at least
But
we heat it
bright.
up.
At least today.
At least it's brightening up. Indeed. So, Dr. Awale, you the man in charge of the vaccine deployment countrywide. You were appointed by the Cabinet Secretary and the Emergency Response Committee for this. Before we go further into understanding the vaccine rollout and everything, what is your expertise? During this COVID, we've seen epidemiologists, virologists. So what are you, vaccinologist?
No, let me start by saying my background is a medical doctor, and I specialized in the area of public health, more towards prevention, and in particular, the epidemiology of a very common disease known as malaria. That is the one I've studied up to the graduate level. But my experience spans a lot across infectious disease prevention and control. Within the Ministry of Health, prior to many other assignments, I was in charge of the malaria program. I was then in charge of all infectious diseases, HIV, TB, malaria, including the diagnostic aspects of it. And then I've had a stint working outside of the country, working with the Johns Hopkins University and also University of Washington in many other programmatic aspects. So in a nutshell, this is my experience.
So you understand medicine, you understand Kenya.
Yes.
Tick on both.
And he understands public health.
Public health, which is very important.
Not just from the administrative aspect of it, but from the implementation aspect of it.
The practical side.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So we'll talk about the vaccines that we're expecting. The president said government is on high gear in terms of procuring the vaccines and getting the vaccines in the country and getting everybody vaccinated. But looking at the first tranche of vaccines that we received, 1 million point something, came into the country, and there was an entire elaborate plan that your task force had rolled out on how they were going to arrive at JKIA, go to Kitengela, go to the various points, be rolled out to the first frontline workers and then everybody else. And then it appears to have just crumbled in the very beginning. First, slow uptake. Then the people who are targeted seem not to be aware that they're actually being targeted. What was happening?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And this really brings to core what we call programmatic preparations for any major public health intervention. So vaccines, you go through a stage, there's an introductory phase where you are required to put a lot of systems into place before the rollout. Remember, we're also dealing with a vaccine that had only been issued with what you call emergency use authorization. So it does not have full market. Among the requirements is to have a clear system to report any side events. The second thing was to train and capacity build the healthcare workers so that they administer it as is required. And so that is why it took long. And for us, we wanted to learn by doing. So initially, actually, one thing we did not want the vaccines to be lying idle within the stores in Kitengela. So we quickly made a decision that every county must start with one hospital. As we capacity build the other healthcare workers and roll from 47 with an aim of reaching 600. So training was one of the things. And I'm very happy because the training has now borne fruit. Generally, you expect a 10% wastage of vaccines, but because of the kind of training that we really took, we've seen that we have efficiency. We're actually vaccinating more people than the number of doses. And this can be explained that in one vial, on average, you have 10 doses but of AstraZeneca, but you could easily vaccinate up to 12 people. So so that was...
10 doses, 12 people.
Is this because of things like spillage or what are we looking at here? Because it would say, okay, are you giving somebody less than the other?
Explain how the training aspect ties into this.
Into this.
Yes.
You see, in training, there are two things you look. You want to train the health workers to minimize wastage. Wastage can come in various ways, including how you draw, and you may not draw the right doses. But also, secondly, is with AstraZeneca, once you open the vial, you must make sure you utilize it within 6 hours. So people must turn up. You do not just open it, because if you open it when you have 2 people, then you have wasted 8 doses. So that's one. Number two, the manufacturers themselves anticipate wastages. So when you start opening these vials, although on average they'll tell you it's 10 doses, but as you draw out the 5 ml, you may get an extra 1 dose or 2 doses.
Okay.
Although some vials may also miss 1, they may be 9. So that is really how that comes about. And you prepare healthcare workers for that.
Okay.
So you were explaining what was happening at that point. There was a lot of training that took place, and you wanted to roll out and make sure that you're optimizing efficiency.
Yeah.
And so you say that you're very happy because we actually have more people seeking to be vaccinated than the vaccines that we had.
Yes.
And so what was our wastage percentage? Did we waste any?
At this point, we are actually on a gain. It could be anything about 5%, the last I looked at. Because by last week we had got 1.5 million doses overall. And with 100,000 doses still, we had almost vaccinated 1.5 million. But let me also say something about healthcare workers, because that was stated as an issue when we started the vaccination. The truth of the matter is, with only one facility in a county vaccinating, and healthcare workers spread all over, some working in remote areas, access was already a challenge. And many of them were waiting for the vaccines to be delivered to the lower posts. You know, they will not spend their fare to travel and go to Kakamega from some remote area to get that vaccine. And obviously we had assured them that we are going to roll down slowly up to what we are calling level 3 facilities. But because of the global constraints, and when COVAX started indicating to us these vaccines are not there, then our plan became affected. That was one major challenge that we got, that what had been promised to us, very close to almost 3.5 million doses between March and May, did not happen. The second thing that had an impact is that if you remember, in early March, the country experienced the third wave. It was very severe, especially the first 2 weeks. And we had to make a decision that now we are no longer just protecting the frontline workers whom we are vaccinating, but we must protect those at most risk of infection, severe disease and death. So we made a decision when we looked at the data, we had to bring in now the 58-year-old plus to be vaccinated. So that actually meant, if you look at our population statistics, the over 58 are something like 2.7 million. So we had planned to vaccinate 1.25, but we quickly had to start to bring in another 2.7 million Kenyans.
The uptake initially seemed to have been poor. Because, I mean, beyond what some of the factors that you've already just spoken about, there were these rumors swirling that, are we sure that what we are taking is authentic? Why should we? Not just coming from the wider population of Kenyans, but even coming from some health workers in some quarters. And so that sent a lot of the rumor mill then was spinning very quickly. How did you deal with that in terms of communication? Because in as much as, you dealt with, or you still deal with the implementation, the communication is a vital factor here. How then were you able to deal with that, and how will you continue dealing with that going forward?
Okay, thank you. From the beginning, we faced that challenge of misinformation, rumors, call them untruths, a lot of them through social media, some even through main media, because people would talk and tell you that these vaccines did not go through a complete evaluation. We don't know what it may cause. But also, even on the ground, there were rumors that, this thing is all family planning and everything like that. So one of the things we did at the task force was to recommend what we call frequently asked questions, develop them and give answers, share them as widely as we could to do that. But we also strategically said we need the leaders, the political leaders, to champion this, because people listen to them. And we also listen to people, and we realized they kept asking one thing: if the president is not vaccinated, I'm waiting for that. That is when I'll trust. This thing, I'm not trusting it until I see them. And fortunately, and with that wave, then His Excellency the President, the Cabinet, the governors and the senators started
Chief
this
Justice
problem.
as well.
And if you look at our statistics, I think that was on a Friday. Monday, the following day, the uptick just shot very high. So that is something that worked for us. And for us, I think the use of political leaders and other leaders of influence, they could also be in the business, the religious leaders, is very, very key. Let me also mention, we met the religious leaders under the Interfaith Forum. I remember that day it wasn't a very easy conversation, but we really gave them all the information. They wanted a lot more, and we are going to continue really working with them. So use of leaders, both political, the religious, business, and other community influencers is going to be very key going forward.
Sure.
Dr. Why was it not an easy conversation?
Let me say, in one of them meeting with the religious leaders, the Catholic Church in particular, they had some of their medical doctors, and they were taking this point of view that we really do not need to undertake mass vaccination. They had a lot of questions about it. They were saying it's not going to be useful at the moment. So we had to go into the science and come back to a decision public health impact. I know, in fact, at the end, what I was told in that meeting is that, yes, you've done very well, but there are still those who are convinced this requires. However, the good thing is that when the Catholic Church decided to do the uptake themselves, the vaccination, you saw Bishop Muheri and others, then really that solved a lot of questions that had been asked.
Which takes me back to that point, the initial point of setting up systems and planning. Had you not factored in the issue of stakeholder engagement and the importance of stakeholders in rolling out a campaign such as this one? Stakeholders, number one, being the political leadership, community influencers, like you're saying, religious leaders, healthcare workers themselves. We were speaking with the Secretary General then of the KMPDU, and you were saying, we haven't even been called by the task force to be told exactly what the plan is. Had you not factored this in?
Let me say, there are two aspects to this. First, stakeholder engagement. Remember, during the first phase, it was targeted. It was healthcare workers, it was frontline workers, the security forces, the teachers, those as the very key stakeholders, because we are not going to a full-blown campaign initially, but we planned to move to that come July. So this is the time we'll be going to a full-blown campaign because it would be covering almost the entire population. But looking at key stakeholders, the first one was the Council of Governors. We had meetings. We had meetings with the CECs. We had meetings with the governors themselves. Then we had meetings with the teachers. We had meetings with the union teachers. For healthcare workers, we really had a lot of virtual meetings. One of the things, you see, we were in an era, and during that time there was a surge. We were not having physical meetings, so we were not having any hotel meetings. But if you really go and look at our records, we held virtual meetings with very many healthcare workers. I did a lot of presentations. Virtually every 2 days at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., I was talking either to the doctors, the nurses, the other health professionals. So, but we appreciate that, you know, we are moving from the culture where it's until I'm called to this big hotel and I see and I am...
if I'm not recognized.
Yes.
So this was among the risks that you saw in the rollout at that point. And then there was now the whole issue of the slow uptake. And then, like you say, once people started seeing their trusted influencers going ahead to take it, then there was a wider rollout. But then there were people who were not initially in this first group. They are not among the elderly who still accessed the vaccine. How did that happen? Is this a leakage in the system, or was it just one of those that you said, okay, it's a good thing because everybody wants to get a vaccine?
Yeah, you know, in terms of scarcity, you'll put rules. You know, even if there is hunger and you tell people that we want to feed the children first, you'll still get other people coming. But the experience with the vaccination programs, one of the cardinal rules from experience is that you are not you should never be very restrictive. Because if you're very restrictive, you could put away people from coming when you need them. And remember, everybody has to be protected. So that is one guidance. Number two, as I told you, there's this issue of wastage. So in a remote area, you've opened a vial, you need 10 people, 2 people have thrown, then you have to make a decision between discarding 7 or using it to somebody who's up. Then the other thing was, this age of elderly was quite a challenge because it is 58, but there are so many 56, 57 who, remember during that time there was a surge. Hospitals were full and people could see. So this 58 as a line became a challenge, and that's what you keep seeing in our statistics, others. If you really look at many others, they're actually between 55 who feel I'm as good as 58. I did this vaccine.
So, Doc, I'm still stuck on this communication issue. And one of the major things now, a lot of people, and we're not just talking, it's across board, who right now don't understand the importance of getting this vaccine. Even as you work on the implementation, clearly from what you told us today, it is something you understand in the implementation of prevention of diseases. What is it that we are saying to Kenyans now in terms of that communication? Because the communication that seemed to come out was the vaccine is here, come out and get it.
Yeah.
But there are people who are asking questions. Okay,
Why?
What does it do for me if I get it?
So let me really admit here, and it's been a very fair criticism that our communication was not really up to what it should have been. We agree that during that phase, that's a lesson we've learned. And now during this second phase, one of the things is we've brought in now experts. So we've recruited a communication firm. It's already started working with the task force to start really drilling the messages, targeting which messages need to go, trying to make consistency in the way the messaging is done. So we will be seeing an improvement in that. Not really to say as an excuse, but during the first phase, one of the challenges, as I've told you, when we realized the vaccine are not there, we had this to balance between ramping up communication, yet people show up and there are no vaccines.
Yes.
So there was that balance that let's not talk too much and then people turn up and yet you have no vaccines to give them. Yeah.
Let's take a break at this point. 25 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live on SpiceFM, online, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also live on KTN Home, having a conversation with Dr. Willis Ahwale. He's the chairman of the COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force. So we are expecting millions of doses of vaccine in the next couple of weeks. He'll be telling us about that and the rollout and where you can get it, and also answer that very, very important question. Why should you get vaccinated? And then, after you've been vaccinated, how do you behave? Because that's also a very important one. Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break. Have you visited jobs.standardmedia.co.ke? You should. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke is a portal that very many employers are posting jobs, and you go there and you find a job that suits you, you can apply. United Nations Development Program, for example, today is looking for an intern program support, or they're also looking for a chief of service programs management. African Population and Health Research Center is looking for a grant accountant for fund management. There also Syria Justice and Accountability Center is looking for an accountant. UN Habitat is looking for employees as well. Free the Children is looking for biology and agriculture teacher, English literature teacher, math, chemistry teacher. Wildlife Works is looking for a senior research scientist. These and many more jobs. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice 24/7 around the world.
Sugar and spice and everything now. You like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
It's sunny in Nairobi at 14, highs of 20, lows of 15 today. Cloudy conditions now. The rain has stopped in Nyeri at 14 with highs of 21. 22 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Nakuru at 13. It continues to rain in Eldoret now at 12, highs of 20. 26 will be the high in Kisumu where it's raining at 19, and also light rain in Kakamega at 18 with highs of 25 and lows of 15 today. We're looking at highs of 28 in Mombasa where it's raining at 24, light rain at 25 in Malindi with highs of 28. 24 will be the high in Kampala. It's partly sunny at 22, and we're also looking at rain in Dar es Salaam at 23, going to highs of 29 and lows of 22. It's 3 degrees in Johannesburg. It's sunny. It'll go to highs of 10 and lows of -3 today. Rain showers in Lagos at 24 with highs of 29. 20 will be the low in a sunny Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 30.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so we're not looking at a nail-biting situation just yet in traffic. It looks like a pretty good day. Whatever we're looking at, Mombasa Road seems to have opened up. Juja Road has opened up. There was some traffic this morning, but looking much better. Places where accidents took place are smooth flowing now. The Likoni interchange, different story, however, as you try to connect with Mombasa Road, the southern bypass, moving very slowly right now. Headed out into the city then from Uhuru Highway. Ride around Nyayo Stadium takes some time, looking at bumper-to-bumper traffic in some parts. Jogo Road all the way from Hamza going towards Makongeni and then out towards the roundabout at the City Stadium is slow. Landis Road also making its way gingerly into town. We'll keep looking at that as we go along. Talk to us if you need to. You stuck somewhere? Let's see if we can get you out. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
8:30.
94.4.
It continues. In the room, you have Eric Latif, Nduo Kositi Muga, and our guest this hour is Dr. Willie Sahwale. He's a chairman, COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force, talking about vaccine deployment in the country, the lessons learned, and the importance of getting the vaccine, and what you should know about this. So, Dr. Sahwale, you'll tell us about, the vaccine doses that we expect in the country. You'll also tell us about the different vaccines and whether one is better than the other. Is it the Indian? Is it the Chinese one? Is it Sputnik 5 from Russia? Is it Johnson & Johnson? Is it Pfizer? Is it the UK version of AstraZeneca? But let's start with, why is a vaccine important?
A vaccine is very important. First, from the experience we've had with the impact it has on a number of diseases that may have killed more people than COVID has done. TB, for example, was a major killer. Measles was another major killer. Mumps and pertussis and whooping cough, all these have been brought under control. Polio, obviously, is another one because of vaccines. So when COVID struck and scientists started looking at the best options, obviously hygiene measures, physical distancing, based on the experience of the Spanish flu of the 1919, came in handy. But we had one thing in our advantage, that technology now had moved to make it easier for us to develop vaccines, because now we have better molecular understanding of the pathogens. And many people have been asking, was this thing rushed? The truth of the matter is that in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of research in what you call platforms that can then be used to develop vaccines. And in particular, a lot of work had been done towards getting a vaccine for Ebola. So based on that, it was easier for researchers to ride on that. And that's why these vaccines came faster. And for us, it was very crucial because the first thing that was identified in the clinical trials is that these vaccines were able to stop severe disease. Remember, COVID was killing. It was very unpredictable. Somebody gets it, and within no time, there are those who die very fast. So severe disease was the biggest challenge. You had to stop the deaths. So that is one. And for me, that is the biggest utility now. And the reason that they were given emergency use was to protect lives, that had been shown to occur. So that is number one. When you use a vaccine, you are protecting yourself. You will not get that severe disease. I mean, you are not going to be among those people who have to start looking for oxygen, being in an ICU bed, spending many days in hospital, being isolated, completely bringing you down from your norm. So that is number one. Number two, in a number of countries now, as they started vaccinating, they started seeing an impact in what you call transmission between communities, what you want to call mild to moderate disease. And many of what you hear, the efficacy, is basically determined by that. Let me say that when it comes to severe disease, in the clinical trials, all the vaccines were 100%. They stopped severe disease. So if anybody asks you which vaccine is better, the vaccine that is good is the one inside your arm, already protecting you. And usually 2 to 3 weeks after vaccination, your body has thrown an immune response to start protecting you. The figures that you hear, 70%, 92%, is a lot more what we want to call epidemiological parameters. And they can vary from one region to another. You could get a vaccine that is evaluated where the incidence of COVID is very low or just before a surge. For example, if there was a vaccine evaluated in Kenya November, December last year, you may not get the same as if it was evaluated in March. So those common parameters have never, so there has not been a head-to-head comparison between these vaccines. But it will also be exciting if you reduce the so-called symptomatics, the mild and moderate ones, because then you start getting fewer people getting sick, you start getting fewer transmission, and you start getting people back to their normal life, socioeconomic life. And for a country like Kenya, and the whole globe, the economy is suffering, the loss due to lockdowns. Obviously, when numbers go high, when there's an increase, we go to lockdowns. So one of the things vaccinations are going to do, and the reason the government is investing heavily in vaccination, is that we want to reduce any chance of going to lockdowns, and we know the impact they have socioeconomically.
Okay. How much of it is a challenge, though, even as you're saying these things, even as I, for example, am demanding communication that is very clear to the people, when you don't have the vaccine in terms of the numbers, then it becomes very, very difficult to essentially do your job, Daktari. That to say, this is the communication, this is what we're asking people, this is what we are saying in terms of what a vaccine can do for you. But in the last 6 months, since we were sure that the vaccine would be rolled out, we've gotten 1.5 million doses against the population, hopefully to have vaccinated the entire adult population by a certain time. That's a challenge, obviously. Now, we've been told that over the next 2 months, around about 23 million vaccines then will be made available. That's what we've been told. How do you feel about that? And are you sure that then this communication that you would essentially be rolling out will be backed up by actual implementation of the thing, being the vaccines being in the country?
Yes, that is a challenge we've taken. First, let me say, myself and the task force that I lead that really has representation from many sectors is excited with the fact that now there's an improvement in the global supply of vaccines. We started seeing that, especially after June, we'll be moving from scarcity and getting better supplies. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the COVAX team, and they actually affirmed that. And therefore, when we look at the pipeline for Kenya, we do see that, especially in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to get the U.S. donation of 1.7 million doses of Pfizer. We have also been told under the COVAX we get 270,000 doses of Pfizer as well. And then, the government actually placed orders for Johnson & Johnson. It's only that the manufacturing, it was a constraint. When you hear that countries were hoarding, really what was happening is that many of the rich countries had booked supply. So even if you had money, you had to wait on a queue.
You joined a queue.
So the government has placed order through the African Union of initially 10 million doses, but there's been a price reduction. So we will get 13 million doses. We've been told the delivery will start next month. We are already in discussions about those deliveries. And when you see with 13 million doses, we are estimating to be getting 1 to 2 million vaccines per month. In fact, as a task force, we are preparing for the increased doses and also preparing for multiple vaccines.
Okay.
Because now we are not going to only have AstraZeneca. In the next 3 months, most likely, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson will be in this country.
Okay.
So what will you be telling people? Do you have a choice of whichever you want? If you want Pfizer, go to this facility. If you want Johnson & Johnson, go to the other facility. Or do you just present yourself to a facility? Ile utapata ndio utadungwa.
Yes, this was an interesting discussion 1 week ago with the task force, and we were learning experiences from other countries. And what we really said is all these vaccines are good. So that's number one. Number two, many vaccines have short shelf life. From manufacturing to use is 6 months. But when you put logistics there, you'll find by the time they are really reaching the end user, they most likely have 3 months to expiry. So you need to use them fast. So first strategy. We actually made a decision that we want to allocate vaccines to a facility. So if Kenyatta Hospital, we decide it is Pfizer, it's Pfizer. Mama Lucy, we say it's Johnson, it's Johnson. If we say Embu Hospital, it is AstraZeneca, it is going to be AstraZeneca. So that when you go there, it's not like you are walking in a kiosk and saying, mimi ni mandazi na chai, mimi nataka hii. Because you can see the challenge you may have if people say, I only need Pfizer. If it is not there, then I'm waiting until you bring it.
Yeah.
But will that capacity also not be determined by the very facility's capacity to store these vaccines? Because some of these vaccines have to be stored at rather unusual temperatures, wouldn't you say?
A very good question. And actually, even before I came to the studio, because we are now talking with Pfizer, and those ultra cold chain requirements for some of them require exactly that. That is why, as a task force, our recommendation is, especially for Pfizer that requires that specialized cold chain, we are going to really prioritize level 6, level 5, and a few select level 4 facilities. Okay. While those that require 2 to 8 will go down into level 2, and most likely also will be using them to reach the communities through outreaches. Because during this time, we are not going to restrict ourselves. We are scaling up. We have to reach 10 million people. We want to reach herd immunity in the shortest time possible. So we are going to change strategy. In fact, we've been only using 200 of the 600 facilities because of the constraints we had. We are quickly going to expand to use all the 600 facilities, add more, but also start doing outreaches. So one aspect that we have brought in to help better planning is the Chanjo system, the digital platform that was developed by our own people here in Kenya to support this. It has a self-registration module. So we are going to encourage people to register in it, book the date, the place when you are going to be. Once you've done that, we'll be able to project. So we will know this group number of people have applied to get Pfizer at Kenyatta National Hospital, and we are only able to send those number of doses that will be used within a period of 5 days.
What about those who don't have access to the internet, for example, and would like to get this and are not able to get onto this platform? How do they register?
So 2 things. Through the same module, we have what we call assisted registration. So you can assist others to register on it as well. The other thing you can do is that you can also go to the nearest health facility, get registered and come back. But more importantly, last week, the task force made a recommendation on what is called USSD, where we could use even community health workers to register people from within communities and then come to a vaccination post when we have an outreach. Yes.
So the idea here is you go to the portal, you book an appointment for when you want to go and get the vaccine.
Yes.
And then this is, the assumption here is that it will work so seamlessly that it's able to actually lock out and say, okay, this particular day we have X number of people who are coming to KNH. It's not available for you. Pick a different date. This is the assumption that we're making. Because if I just go onto the platform and I say I want to go on the 15th of August, and everybody picks the 15th of August, and then I go on the 15th of August, people expect, if I booked an appointment, surely I'm coming to get it. Not to come and be told, unajua watu ni wengi, ama hazijakuja, MOH haijatoa. How do you address those?
That is where we want to reach. That's the ideal. But obviously, it's not going to be that straightforward. But let me say that even in the first phase, we tested our self-registration module. So far, over 200,000 Kenyans have actually self-registered for vaccination. We did not really popularize it because we knew the vaccines are not there. People would have been frustrated registering and missing them. But going forward, as I've said, we are now going to have adequate and an increasing number of vaccines. So we really want to make use of this self-registration. It may have challenges, but we'll be making it better and better. One of the challenges we've had, remember, others health services must continue.
Yes.
Remember, vaccinations for children must also continue. Remember, this vaccination post is where we go. We don't want others to be selfish that COVID is killing us, vaccinate me, and we are not vaccinating the children against measles and TB. So we will. That is why we are working with county governments in particular, because that's where vaccination takes place, to start seeing how we best schedule. One of the directions we've given is that any post, we are not going to interfere with childhood vaccination. It must be away from where the MCH clinic is. And really looking at the capacity of each facility, if it has 2, 3 nurses, clinic officers, and doctors, then you are able to see how many. This determination is part of what we are calling micro-planning that the national government is doing with the county government. It started last week. A tool has been prepared. We are going to be able to know how the kind of workload any facility can take.
There's something I'd like to ask, Daktari. You are a public health practitioner. Now, I don't want to be a soothsayer, neither do I want to be a prophet of doom. But if COVID has come, something else will come. Before COVID, we had HIV. Now, public health practitioners such as yourselves focus on, if I get it right, the preventative aspects of healthcare. Now, within the healthcare system, there's a cadre of employee called a health worker, community health worker. Now, with the HIV pandemic, very many people were trained in this field. And a lot of the success that we've had in the field of HIV can be attributed partly to the work that these people did. Now, my question, what did the ministry, maybe I'm going out to the boundaries of the task force, but this is a workforce that exists. This is a workforce that is trained in counseling. This is a workforce that is trained actually in communicating. If you tweaked that information from HIV to COVID, would this workforce not have been useful? So my question is, do we always use the human resource we have to ensure that, one, we communicate these messages that we want to communicate, or that when it comes to preventative aspects, we also get them to reach out to the communities in which they live, because they exist?
Absolutely. Now, let me say we are going to use them. In fact, the planning that is going on now is now to really identify them. Remember, from one county to another, there are different numbers. They are identified a little bit different, but you are right. A lot of investment has been put into community health workers. They have been very useful in malaria, which is my main field, in HIV, in tuberculosis, tracking people who have not come. Right now, even those who may get the first dose, and we start looking for them, we want them to be fully vaccinated, you really have to follow on the community health workers. You have to work very closely with others. But community health workers are very, very important. And that is why, to us, this next phase of accelerating vaccinations. They are going to be at the core. They are the ones who will be at the core of community mobilization, what you call defaulter tracing, messaging, as you are saying. They are going to, and even reporting. Because, like even right now in Western Kenya, we have reports of surges of COVID. And, health-seeking behavior can be different. There could be a lot of deaths within community. You depend on people like this to start giving you that information. You depend on provincial administration, those who are issuing the death certificates. And you start figuring then what is really causing, how come now we have more deaths at this particular time. So I appreciate the issue of community structures. They are very key in prevention. And yes, for COVID, a highly infectious disease, the principles remain prevent, prevent, prevent.
When you say that, it sounds very good. It sounds the task force has put in the thought behind it and the measures and the plans behind it. But just judging by that first phase, where can you say that you were able to actually train and use community health workers in vaccine rollout? So that then you can say the next 23 million doses that we expect, or so many millions by the end of the year, community health workers are going to be central to the rollout of vaccine.
Yes, let me clarify something, and I said it at the beginning. The very first phase was highly targeted. We knew where teachers are. We knew where healthcare workers are. We knew where security forces are. Now, the 58-year-old, of course, that's what brought the general community. But it was an interesting observation that their demand, because they saw the impact of the third wave, they came. I was looking at statistics for a county like Kajiado, where the number of health facilities were few. So the uptake was very low until we allowed 58-year-old. And Kajiado was among the top 10 in terms of uptake, because, that is where a lot of our people live. So they came in huge numbers. Now that we'll have enough vaccine is when we are really going into a campaign mode. Now is when we are going deep into the communities. We are now targeting every adult because the vaccines are only registered for use up to 18. Pfizer, I think, may be registered up to 16. But our main target first is to really ensure the adult population who are at most risk of severe disease are protected. So, yes, we had planned to use community health workers. We did not use beyond reasons beyond us that the vaccines. We expected 3.5 million doses, you can imagine. And we've struggled to get 1.5 up to just last week.
So what plans do you have then to get the community health workers ready? You said in the next 3 weeks we're expecting so many doses, millions of doses. Are the community health workers already being trained, already being deployed?
What I actually said, and this is ongoing, we started working with the counties last week on a Wednesday to develop a micro-planning tool that identifies, among the things we want is to use those community healthcare workers. So by this week, I expect the trainings have actually started, not of but of the TOTs, the county, the people who will now go and work with the county teams to do that. That has started, I can report here.
Where I was going with my question is beyond COVID. A lot of the burden that our healthcare system has is because of the curative approach we have to healthcare. So, COVID aside, surely practitioners such as yourself with the wide experience that you have, should we not push for a policy where, if you recall at a younger age, we used to have these extension workers. Now, what they did, they lived among the people, and what they did was this education we keep talking about, sensitization, they did a fairly good job of it. And right now in this day and age, and with the burdens that we have, should we not focus on getting these people to be part and parcel of the healthcare system in a way so that even if there isn't COVID, these diseases people don't even need to accommodate, don't need to have, are eradicated because it can be eradicated so that even the problems we have with people needing healthcare at health facilities is reduced significantly.
Like malaria.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, I've seen the utility in malaria control. It's good, it's amazing. So, but let me say that I think the issue of sustainability of community health workers has been also on the aspect of their remuneration. But in the last 3-4 years, a lot of county governments have put in resources to start supporting them because they need to travel. There's work they are doing. We must invest in them and in a sustainable manner. I agree with you. That is what will strengthen the focus of the ministry. For sure, I sit in senior management. I know the Cabinet Secretary, Mutahi Kagwe, makes it very clear that it is prevention. This is where our focus should be. But we must then work very closely with the county government because prevention will begin at the community level. So policies that support counties to implement preventive measures is now a major focus at the Ministry of Health.
What do we need to do to get back to those good old days that City is talking about, when we had health and Grigasha, people who are just common in the community?
Yeah, there is a lot. Devolution of health services in a big way was also aimed to do that. Because you see, when you enter the community, you are the one who sees what the burden is. You are the one who sees where the breeding of mosquitoes are. You are the one who sees where the dirty water is and what you need to do to that. So that focus at the county level, very clear strategies that can be implemented in a sustainable way and making use of the resources you said. Once you start asking how many community health workers Kenya has, you'll get very varying. It's a big time. We realize it's a huge army that can be used and put to very use utility. So for me, I think it's going beyond policies and putting in sustainable structures and looking at health just beyond feeling well, but a major contributor to the socioeconomic development of this country.
Indeed. Let's take a break and say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been watching us since the top of the hour. The conversations continue every weekday morning. This is the Situation Room. We are live on SpiceFM. We are online. And we come on to KTN Home for the hour 8 to 9. But you can switch on to SpiceFM if you're in Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, Kisumu, 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, or Malindi, 97.7. We have been having a conversation with Dr. Willis Ahwale. He's the chairman of the COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So we have 5 minutes to the top of the hour, Dr. Ahwale, and I think this is a good time for you to tell our audience. So you've received the COVID vaccine. Should you now change your behavior? Is it now, can you now throw away the mask at least, or can you start wearing it just, attending parties and such?
As opposed to wearing it on your chin, you can now wear it on your forehead.
Yeah. or on the armband. No, I think this is a very important question. And first, I want to make it local, but also look at it globally, because we need to be consistent. Because you are only safe if everybody around you is safe. Now, as I earlier said, vaccines prevent severe disease. They do not stop transmission. If you are vaccinated, you can still pass the virus to the next person. You will breathe it out, you will cough it out, people will touch it, you are in an enclosed environment, you will get the virus. So transmission continues. So the public health measures of hygiene, physical distancing must continue to be observed. They must continue to be observed until the science tells us things have improved. I know in this country I've met people who tell me, anyway, now I'm vaccinated.
I'm done.
By the way, that is very common.
Now we can shake hands.
Yes, that we are vaccinated, now we can. Are you? Then they ask you, are you? Join us. But I also look at it from the countries in the West. There are those now already saying, don't do this, don't do this. It is good. They may be having evidence to make those decisions, but we will need global coordination. Because if there is no global coordination, then people can start coming with policies as no mask, you, and we are not all going to be safe.
Are we heading towards that? Because we are seeing many countries, especially those in the West, that are saying we've reached a certain level of vaccination. So we are easing measures. We are saying now no more requirement for wearing of masks.
Mm-hmm. We are seeing that, but you're also seeing that they say that, but you start seeing them pulling back again, isn't it? So, and that's why I'm really wishing that World Health Organization, as the global police for health, would be the one that really brings countries, so that when we make a decision that you can drop the mask when you have parameter A, B, C, D, then that's what everybody follows. You can see even in the US, different states are applying different measures. Yeah. And remember, there's a lot of travel in that country. So really, that's what I wanted to say. Here, it is no. Let us really continue. We saw prevention measures, the hygiene really working for us. We've been seeing even the issue of lockdown and no movement having an impact. So let us continue practicing those measures, that we should not look at vaccine as the silver bullet.
All right. Will you send this message also to our political leaders?
Yes.
As
really,
you saw, they are community influencers.
They are community influencers. It is very important. They say you don't drink wine and preach water. Is it water and prayer? Right. It is extremely important. The issue of crowds, the issue of... and you know, one of the things even before you reach the crowds is the meetings you plan and strategize about political things. Yeah. All these contribute to spread of coronavirus disease.
Dr. Willis Akhwale, we thank you very much. Hey, did I say Akhwale? Dr. Willis Akhwale.
That was a politician.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope to have you again soon. As soon as we have some clarity on when the vaccines are starting to arrive, use this platform to spread the message. Let people know where can they get the Pfizer vaccine. If you want the Johnson & Johnson, where can you get it? If you want the AstraZeneca, where can you get it? When you start allowing the people to start importing privately, also come and tell us.
And secondly, when you come into the studio again, which we pray you will, we'll also allow our audience to ask you questions and to express the fears that they have, so that you can actually get a pulse into how it is.
How it is on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, that will be great.
Next time utulete vaccine kama tatu hivi kila mtu.
Okay. Sasa.
Thank you very much. Keep it, influence. I have the vaccine. I can give you if you want. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. We have more conversations in the next hour. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Kitale businessman Kennedy Muyondo, who shot and injured Fanis Chemtai after mistaking her for wanted cop Caroline Kangongo, has been released on a cash bail of 200,000 shillings. The businessman's lawyer Cliff Mbete says they are looking at an out-of-court settlement as his client did not intend to shoot the woman.
Hii ni kesi ambayo iko na mambo mengi ambayo hayajaweza kuwekwa wazi, kwa sababu hii ni kesi ambayo inafuatiwa sana, lakini tunaweza sema kuwa leo ameletwa kotini, ameletwa mahakamani, amesemekana kuwa alikuwa anajaribu kumuua huyo mwanamke ambaye anaitwa Chemtai, na ameweza kukata hayo mashtaka kwa sababu hii haikuwa nia yake.
However, the family of Chemtai, who is still admitted in hospital, is crying for justice. The case will be mentioned on July 28th.
Naomba tu serikali washughulikie kwa sababu huyu ni mtu innocent na hata hakukuwa natarajia apate shida kama hiyo.
The increase of university fees will not affect students that are already admitted at the University of Nairobi. Vice-Chancellor Stephen Kiama says the new fee changes will affect students who are set to join the institution.
There is no fees going to be changed for a student who is admitted by University of Nairobi. We will continue to absorb that deficit. We will have to look for how to resolve that one, because it is us. It's not the student responsibility. It is our responsibility. So if we admitted you as Trevor to this program and we told you you come and you pay 20,000 shillings, we will train you. Wherever we get money from, we continue borrowing like the way we are doing now. But moving forward, we want to say, no. Let us think for a student who come, we have to engage them.
Kiama further says the recent changes that result resulted in the removal of courses were caused by the low intake of students.
The number of students you are graduating, therefore, when you look, you are incurring more costs than what you are collecting from those. Others have not admitted students for some time. The problem is that if we have a program which is not admitting students, there is a risk. Because you can only know that it will not admit students after the closing date.
This comes as UON students had issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the institution to review tuition fee hike by 118%. Chief Justice Martha Koome has fired a warning shot to Parliament and through a letter addressed to Speakers Justin Muturi of the National Assembly and Kenneth Lusaka of Senate. In the letter delivered when Chief Registrar Anna Madi was to appear before a House committee, Koome put the two houses of Parliament on notice that it will no longer be business as usual as far as parliamentary summons are concerned. She further accused MPs of pursuing individual interests and of harassing judicial officers in the name of undertaking their oversight role. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so what are we looking at now? Around about 9 o'clock. Traffic seems to have been behaving very well today. Not too much of an issue in certain parts of the city. Langata Road, how bad is it? Well, it looks like it's not too bad right now. I know it's clogging up right around the roundabout as you're headed then towards Bagathi Way or out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. We're also looking at a little bit of traffic coming out on Gong Road, but not too terrible, which is a good thing. Where it started really sticky, it seems to have opened up quite some, so not too bad right now. Let's take a look in about half an hour and see how it opens up. We're officially out of traffic hour. Till then, SpiceFM KE on Twitter is how you can get in touch. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way.
Good morning. How are you doing? This is the final hour of The Situation Room today, and we begin with the day's proverb by C.T. Muga.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow.
Yes.
This is a Congolese proverb.
Yes.
Which Congo?
This is a Congolese proverb.
Which Congo is your choice? Which one do you want? What do you want it to be, Eric?
Do you want to ask another question?
Okay. There are rivers in all Congos.
Yes.
Sawa basi. Sawa.
There's a river that would fit into Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book perfectly. The river between.
The river between. Yes. The Congos.
And it's a huge river. Massive river. Yes.
Is it? Okay, well, the Nile is bigger. It's big as well. Yeah. I was about to ask, is there any other river that's as big as that one? Yes. So, we're talking about the river between and things that are happening in countries. South Africa. Former President Jacob Zuma is required to appear before a commission investigating matters that have happened during his tenure that implicate him. The former president does not appear. The former president is cited for contempt. The former president is then committed to jail for contempt. The conversation continues with, why are you jailing the former president? Do you not understand that he's a former president? Can you not respect the office that he holds, even if not the person, at least the office of former president of this great nation of South Africa? Anyway, he ended up taking himself and presenting himself to the facility where he's been held since then. But his supporters, led by his family members, led by close political associates of his, have been speaking out openly and saying this is very, very wrong. You cannot, and you should not take a 70-year-old man and confine him to a facility, especially during this time where it's very, very cold. What are you doing? This is wrong. And the followers have listened to this and they agree. No, this is indeed very, very wrong. And they've come out to express their displeasure, their dismay. It is said that there are some people who have taken advantage of what is a noble push. But the bottom line is we have seen a spate of violence in South Africa. Looting. People getting into shops and just taking off with everything. And you're seeing those pictures. Some of them, you look at them and you're laughing. You're wondering exactly what's happening here. Somebody entered a butchery, found an entire carcass of a cow, carried the cow in its entirety on the back, taking wherever they're taking. Others, swine, others, TV. There's a report on the TV station yesterday where they were actually filming this guy live. He has looted, filled things up in the back of his vehicle. He has a small saloon car, boot full, front seat full, back seat full, and then he has this huge TV in a box.
That is trying to fit into this small
He's trying to fit into the small vehicle.
That TV is actually bigger than the vehicle.
And, they were just watching him there and wondering, okay, so what is happening? Are you actually trying to do this? Is he going to do it? He removes stuff from the boot of the vehicle, puts them on the back seat so that he can try and fit the TV. Of course, the TV will not fit. The boot will not close. It will close. But he drove off with everything. We've also seen the destruction of property.
I think as I look at this, I just see that there's so many underlying things here. It would seem as if those who are perpetrators of crime are looking for the ample opportunity to then go ahead and do this. So now this is a perfect excuse for you to do whatever you needed to do. There are those who feel disadvantaged, and we've always seen this coming out of South Africa. There are those who feel that, they've not been able to get jobs because of the immigrant status, etc., etc. So when an opportunity presents itself, they're going to take it and literally, in this case, run. with it, But then those who are protesting, with things that we've seen here, things that we've seen in other parts of the world, that there are those who may be genuinely protesting, but then do not commit crimes. But that those who then are committing these crimes are taking advantage of a protest situation. So what are the underlying messages here? What are the underlying things? Is there really an outcry from a section of the people who feel, look here, if you're going to jail him, there's so many other people that you must jail as well. You must see this thing through end to end. And there are others who say, what are you complaining about? A crime is a crime. If you've done something wrong, then you must pay for it. So are we seeing a clashing of these ideologies happening in South Africa, or and something that has been latent and every now and then bubbles to the surface? And then how long is it going to be like this?
Or is it also basically just a show of what's been happening in South Africa for a long time, in terms of there are people who feel genuinely disadvantaged? Is it a class divide that's emerging? Because every time when they have the xenophobic attacks, you see people actually coming out and emotionally and forcefully taking things. When you see the crime wave and videos that you see, people actually going to great lengths to attack a cash-in-transit vehicle, and they're shooting at it. When you see people now coming out this way, what does it say about the society in South Africa?
Sure.
Are there people who feel that this is our only way out? We shall grab it by force, by fire.
This is the only way to speak out?
Yeah. Let's interrogate what's happening in South Africa, and to help us do this, we're joined by broadcast journalist Innocent Semosa, who is in South Africa. He works for Cosmo Media. Innocent, good morning.
A very good morning to you, and thank you so very much for having me.
We are glad that you can join us. In which part of South Africa are you this morning?
I'm in Johannesburg.
All right, so we have seen a spate of violence in various parts in Durban, in Cape Town, in Johannesburg. And in fact, the news was that it's now spreading towards Johannesburg. Can you just tell us what's been happening in the last couple of days, where you are and in other parts of the country?
Yeah, look, a lot has been happening in South Africa, and we as South Africans are not happy with the latest developments. In fact, this, of course, started at the back of that commission where former President Jacob Zuma was supposed to go and account for what he has done as his term as a leader then. And he refused to go there simply because he wanted the Deputy Chief Justice to recuse himself because he felt like he is actually biased. And the Chief Justice could not recuse himself, and of course he took the matter to the High Court, and the High Court sentenced former President Jacob Zuma to 15 months, and that caused a lot of outcry from Zuma's supporters. In fact, I was in Uganda when he was addressing the media. In fact, one of my colleagues asked him a question to say that, what are you saying with the people outside your home? And because there are talks of social distancing and masks, so those people were not doing those things. And he said that I didn't call them here. And it was almost midnight, and then he handed himself over to the nearest police station in Uganda. And just 2 days after that, we had a lot of protests all over KZN, and of course it spread to some parts of Gauteng. But as it stands, the situation is quite calmer. Yesterday, the president addressed the nation, and of course he spoke about the fact that he's going to deploy the SNDF. This is the South African Defence Force, to help the police to curb this violence, because the reality is that people are just taking advantage of this whole situation. It's not like these people are from Zuma's supporters. No, these people are just criminal acts. They're just criminals taking advantage of this situation.
But these are very many criminals, Innocent. I mean, why would criminals just so spontaneously take advantage of such a situation in many cities across the country?
Yeah, look, I was listening to your conversation, just in your interaction just before I came in. You spoke about a clash of ideologies, and I concur with you. It's more like a dichotomy, because the whole thing spilled from the politics of the African National Congress, because there are factions in the African National Congress, and that faction, the ANC could not deal with their matters. They could not use their structures within the party to deal with the issues, and therefore they took the issues to the court, and that debilitated many of the African National Congress supporters. And of course, that's what we see right now. But also, there are a growing concern that the president is taking, directions from the white monopoly capital. These are the people who own means of production. And there are some who says that former President Jacob Zuma is pro-black. So it's really a clash of ideologies. And this, of course, emanates from the African National Congress. But again, my brother, these are criminals. Yes, there are many criminals. And also, people are hungry, but we cannot justify what they're doing.
Let me ask this question, if I may. Do you think that, generally speaking, the common South African citizen upholds the view that their courts are unbiased, and that when they come to a determination, it is something that is actually within the law? Or is there a feeling among some people that the courts are actually genuinely biased, and so that when there is a ruling, they have every reason to doubt the authenticity of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at South Africa, our main cardinal pillar of attracting investors is the rule of law, and they look at that, and investors are excited about our rule of law, that we uphold the rule of law. But it's really difficult to tell now, my brother, given the fact that Jacob Zuma was arrested without a trial. And if the Deputy Chief Justice wanted to fight him, why not go to the smaller court? Why did he go to the bigger court to fight this battle? This just goes to show that he's saying that, listen, you're not going to win. And This is the Deputy Chief Justice. And those justices in the Concord, this is the Constitutional Court, they are reporting to the Chief Justice. So him taking the matter, it's more like telling them that, listen, this is how you're going to deal with the matter. So it's really difficult to tell. There's a fine line between it because the Constitutional Court acted out of its jurisdiction by giving sentencing former President Jacob Zuma 15 years because this is not a criminal court. It is a constitutional court. So therefore, if they wanted to charge former President Jacob Zuma, they should have taken him to a smaller court, exercise his normal rights, because the Commission of Inquiry, it's not a criminal court. It is a commission where they hear, allegations of corruption and so on and so on. So, many people are really asking this question to say that, are they really credible, these justices, this judiciary? Is it captured or not? But from where I'm sitting, I feel that they were not fair on former President Jacob Zuma's side because he is charged without a trial.
Innocent, his son, Duduzane Zuma, spoke on something like this hours after. And he talked about the fact that he had never seen, growing up and then even living while his father was president, that he had never seen a situation whereby he had been treated fairly or justly. And I believe the direct quote is, "My whole life I have never seen my father enjoy peace and freedom. These political attacks have been like this since we were in school until this day." Would you say, and is this the general feeling for those who are protesting this imprisonment or this charge, that this is a proliferation of that kind of action? Is that what the sentiment is?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. You hit it on the nail. Because, as it stands, former President Jacob Zuma is really going through a lot. Last week he lost his brother. And just yesterday, he lost his first wife, and he is in jail. He is really going through a lot as it stands. And I hold Duduzane Zuma's sentiment because former President Jacob Zuma became a president in 2007 in Polokwane. Remember that he ascended to the biggest position in the land because of popularity, because the branches of the ANC liked him. And at that time, he had these allegations of corruption. And yes, Duduzane is right. He also went as far as to say that he's now grown the case. The Amsdale case has been going on for quite some time. He's now a man he's a family man now. This thing is still going on. It's really debilitating to say the least, because the people who were charged with him, they were arrested, but he was never arrested. Why? And why? If you look at it, the President Ramaphosa has the prerogative to say, listen, let's give this man a pardon. Given the fact that if we take him to prison, this might cause an outcry, an outbreak in the country. This is what we're seeing at the moment, where people are just taking advantage of this situation. So why not give him a pardon? I feel like there's that bitterness from the comrades of the ANC. I don't know what really happened, but it's like they're losing that comradeship. People are really not loyal anymore. They just say, you know what? Be as it may, because also there are politicians in South Africa who are careerists. Without politics, they will actually do nothing. They are unemployed. They are unemployable because what they know is only politics. So whoever is in power, they will then follow that particular person.
Are these allegations unfounded, Innocent? Maybe, in fact, you can just tell us, what is it that the Commission of Inquiry is looking into? And are those allegations unfounded from your point of view?
Well, we're still waiting to hear the final outcome of the commission. It's set to conclude later on this year. But mostly the things that former President Jacob Zuma is accused of, it's mainly your oversight, as a former statesman, and the fact that he was doing business with the Guptas. But the reality is that every cabinet minister met the Guptas. Everybody met the Guptas, but did they do business with them? Your guess is as good as mine. But as it stands, we're still waiting to hear what the outcome will be. But the truth is that he was implicated by a lot of people at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. So that also, gives the faction of President Ramaphosa a political mileage, because it looks like Zuma, as is losing, is a little bit running low. But yeah, if anything, this whole commission was set up to investigate one person, and I think that is really problematic, because he was not in cabinet alone. Yes, he was a former statesman, but he was not in cabinet alone. My brother, if I now put you as a president, you have cabinet ministers, you have DGs, you have deputy ministers. You cannot actually oversee everything. Some things might go without your consent. So I feel like also those deputy ministers at that time, those ministers at that time, they must come and account. Not everything has been done by former President Jacob Zuma.
But there was a report, wasn't there?
Always,
There was a report on this at the state capture, wasn't there? And it seemed to be pointing towards greater culpability resting with the office of the president, and the person who was occupying that office at the point was Jacob Zuma.
Yeah, he was occupying the seat. But like I'm saying, as I've indicated, that he was the president, but there are some things that would go without his consent, because corruption has been the biggest impediment in the African National Congress for structural transformation. So that also, you cannot overlook it, because there are things that went without his consent. He didn't see it. He might not have knowledge of those things. Yes, they happened, but he might not have knowledge of those things. But there are some things that he had knowledge of. So that's why the commission wanted him to come and account. Why did he not blow a whistle to say that this is wrong?
The question that comes to my mind is, a country that actually prides itself in the rule of law like South Africa, are we to understand that commissions such as the one that investigated Jacob Zuma have never been set before? And if others have been set, have there been issues that have arisen from these commissions similar to the ones that are being raised with regards to Jacob Zuma?
Yeah, we had a reconciliation commission just before 1994, when before Mandela came to power. And that reconciliation commission, you remember de Klerk, the apartheid regime, and your Botas of this world, they were called to come and account also. They made it clear that they're not going to come to the reconciliation commission. Who took them to the to the constitutional court? Nobody. So why are you now taking the former President Jacob Zuma to the constitutional court? And the man is saying that, listen, I am not saying I'm not going to come. I am saying that this man must recuse himself because he's biased. Because the truth also is that Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was not supposed to be the man who was supposed to chair the commission. At the later stage, it happened that he was the one that was chairing the commission. But initially, when Jacob Zuma initiated this State Capture Commission of Inquiry, he wanted to clear himself, because there's a lot allegations around him. So he wanted to clear himself. So there was a colored man in Cape Town who was supposed to head this commission. And at the later stage, then former President Jacob Zuma was told that, listen, the man who's chairing this commission is Raymond Zondo. And they have a history with Raymond Zondo. Just to enlighten you.
Tell us a little bit about this history, please.
Family. Look, it's like they have somebody married in one's family, and it's not really clear, but they do have a family. Even former President Jacob Zuma, he doesn't want to divulge more as to how they relate, but there's a relation between them, and it looks like there's bad blood between them. So that's why former President Jacob Zuma said, listen, this man must recuse himself, because there are things that we have outside this commission. So it might affect this commission, him being biased.
But the question that, why I asked the question, it is the president, when he was President Jacob Zuma, who appointed this man. Was it not?
Yeah, look, remember the Chief Justice Mogoeng, who is on leave now. He took another leave. He doesn't want to come and preside on all of these matters because he was told that, he actually said something along the lines that he was given money to make sure that Jacob Zuma goes to jail, and he refused that money. He said, I'm not going to take it, because if we take this man to jail, there's going to be chaos in the country, and we don't want to take a former statesman to jail because there are secrets that lies with the former statesman, so we don't want to risk that. And they promised him money, and he refused that money. That's why now he's on leave. They want him out. That's why
you've said they, and I think that goes to question now that who is this they that we are talking about?
Look, everybody can see that your Zondos and the Cyril Ramaphosa, it's the same faction.
Okay.
To say that's why I'm saying they. They are the chair of the commission and former president. The president Cyril Ramaphosa. Because when he went to the commission, if you watched when he was at the commission, it was gigglings and everything. Because this man, President Ramaphosa, he was the deputy president during former President Jacob Zuma's tenure. And he was in charge of the state entities. And the state entities, as it stands, they're not doing well. And they've not been doing well.
But Innocent, my brother, let me ask the question. I'm asking it again. In 2016, the Deputy Chief Justice, a gentleman, please forgive me if I pronounce his name wrongly, but I'm pronouncing it as it's written, Degang Moseneke, retired. And it's on record that it is Jacob Zuma, who was the president, who appointed this very gentleman that we're referring to. He appointed one Mr. Zondo. It is him, Jacob Zuma, who appointed this man
to be the deputy chief.
Yes, he is. So at what point did the differences...
Did they fall out?
Yes, because clearly for him to have appointed him or to have accepted that the man should take up that position, he saw the reason. So what brought about the change that we now hear that made now the former president ask for this man to recuse himself from this case? Yet he is the one who appointed him.
Yeah, perhaps maybe there was a fallout between former President Jacob Zuma and Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. But according to, as I've indicated, according to the the Chief Justice who is on leave now, Zondo was not supposed to chair the commission. So hence I'm saying that maybe these are just news that are surfacing right now, but what we've been knowing all along is that Zondo was not supposed to chair the commission.
So, from where you sit, Innocent, who is the puppet master? Who is running this show to get Zuma as far away from influence as possible, to distinguish the chances and possibilities of him having control of any faction of ANC?
Well, obviously, is the president, but I don't want to say names. Like, as I've indicated earlier, that there are careerist politicians in the African National Congress. So, and when you look at the ANC, they had a conference in Nasrec in 2017 when Ramaphosa came into power. And they asked him who were his funders at that time, and he could not disclose them till to date. There are people who are asking, who were your funders? He doesn't want to disclose. Okay, fair enough. Then he went to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. He said because there were allegations that money went to about 1 billion. And he said, no, that money was about 300 million rand for me to campaign to become president. Okay, fair enough. This simply means that the politics of the ANC involves a lot of money. If I am innocent, I want to challenge President Ramaphosa for presidency. Obviously, I'm going to lose because I don't have the 300 million to contest him. Right. So that's a problem of the ANC with money. So there's a thin line between the ANC conference elective conference and money, because money was circulated in hotels. Comrades were given money to vote for President Cyril Ramaphosa. So this simply means that without money, you cannot become president. So he became president not because of popularity, but because of money.
Would you say then that there are clear factions here that are fighting and jostling for control of the ANC and therefore control of the country's politics? But the people who are suffering are the citizens, and yet the citizens are the ones who are in an uprising today.
Of course, people are. There are factions, yes, that I can confirm. You look at the deputy, the Secretary General of the ANC. He's also being suspended. Why is he suspended? He's suspended of oversight also. Okay, if he's suspended of oversight, why is Ramaphosa not charged with oversight for SABC that is ailing, for ESCOM that can't keep the lights on, for SAA that can't take to the airway, for Denel that can't produce firearms? So there are things that also the former president is the president is hiding from. There are things that he also needs to account. But I don't know. As I've indicated that there's money that is being circulated for people to go to a certain particular faction, because without politics again, these people are unemployed.
Just turn the line for a bit longer, Innocent, so we can continue this conversation. But let's take a break at this point. We are speaking with Innocent Semosa, who's in Johannesburg, telling us about what's happening in that country. He is a broadcast journalist with Cosmo Media. So, yeah, a lot of protests and demonstrations in the past couple of days over the incarceration of former President Jacob Zuma. What's the cause of all this, and what's likely to happen in coming days as well? 27 minutes to 10. Let's take a break, take a look at the traffic and weather, and remind you about jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. If you've not visited the website today, please do. If you don't find any job that suits you today, just subscribe. When one that suits you is listed, you will be notified. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology is looking for an audit and compliance officer. They're also looking for a grants officer, county monitoring, evaluation and learning officer. The UNEP is looking for an intern program support. UN Habitat is looking for a program management officer for human settlements. The UNEP is also looking for a chief of service, program management, and many other jobs listed by other organizations. jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your Telkom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say.
Thank you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero.
It's sunny in Nairobi, will change at 16, highs of 20 and lows of 15 today. Cloudy conditions at 15 in Nyeri, highs of 21 and lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 13 in Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 14. Light rain in Kisumu now 20, going to highs of 26 and lows of 18, and it's partly sunny at 20 in Kakamega with highs of 25 and lows of 15. We'll see highs of 23, or rather highs of 28 in Mombasa. It's raining at 25, and there's also rain in Malindi at 25, going to highs of 28 and lows of 24. Partly sunny conditions in Kampala at 23. It'll go to highs of 24, lows of 16. And we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions now in Dar es Salaam with highs of 25, with highs of 29 and lows of 22. Looking at sunny conditions in Johannesburg, highs of 10 and lows of -3 today. Light rain at 24 in Lagos, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Mostly cloudy at 21 in Kinshasa, going to highs of 30. Going out east of the globe into Beijing, light rain at 30. That'll be the high, coming down to lows of 24. There's a thunderstorm warning for yellow in Paris. Currently raining at 17. We'll go to highs of 20 and lows of 16. There's a haze over the London skies at 17. Highs of 22 and lows of 15. And cloudy conditions with a flash flood warning in New York at 22. That'll be the low for today. It'll go to highs of 26.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so Juja Road has made a turnaround this morning. We had jam-packed situation earlier, but now swiftly moving into the city and out without too much of an issue, so it looks pretty good. Sections of Brookside Drive and Muguga Green have an issue, as it will be difficult to get through this morning because of the construction taking place there. So it slows things down just a tad, and you have some traffic then spilling onto Waiyaki Way. So watch out for that, guys. Apart from that, everything is looking a little better. Hopefully it stays that way for most of the day. Officially out of traffic hour now. Hopefully the roads stay clear. SpiceFM KE through the day. If you need to get in touch on Twitter, you can text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
20 minutes to 10.
94.4.
Conversation. It continues. This is a Situation Room with Eric Latif Nduoko CT Muga. And joining us on the line from Johannesburg, South Africa is broadcast journalist Innocent Semosa. We are talking about what's happening in that country, city.
Let me ask this question, Innocent. Would I be wrong in coming to the conclusion that what indeed we are seeing playing out here is not so much an issue that relates to wrongdoings that the former president is being accused of, but rather the infighting that is the infighting for power within ANC, and one could argue that it is also taking on a tribal leaning. Would I be accurate in coming to that conclusion?
Yeah, it is. It is. It goes without saying. I mean, you look at the conference that I just mentioned, the Nasrec conference, and because the kingmaker at that time, it was in Mpumalanga province, and also it has got a lot of Zulus, and therefore you had a situation whereby at a later stage that conference went to it was supposed to it was supposed to go with the Zulus, but as I've indicated earlier, because of money, then people changed their mind to now vote for CR17. It was plain and clear that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was taking this, but simply because of comrades not being loyal to their tribe or to their values and to their traditions, so they went to support President Ramaphosa.
Innocent, you said something earlier when we started this conversation about the rule of law essentially being the bane to foreign investment and any kind of economic stability that we see in South Africa. Now, clearly what is going on currently sends a signal, sends a message. Would it make sense, even if being pre-warned, that sending Zuma to prison would essentially erupt in something else? and still taking that decision? Because if the rule of law is actually what is going to take precedence over anything else, would you then look at a situation whereby they will stick to the rule of law and keep him there, regardless of what is happening in the country? Are they going to stick to the decision?
Yeah.
Overturn things to make sure that an economic investment situation remains stable?
Yeah, look, the rule of law needs to be upheld, but at the expense of who at the same time? Because these is politics going to courts, and at the same time they're spilling to all of these chaos that we're seeing in South Africa. So I think that we needed to compromise, perhaps, because of the safety of people. As I speak now, 6 people are dead and 200 people are arrested, and we are in the so-called pandemic. How are you going to social distance if you have to in jail with 200 extra people? We don't have enough facilities as it stands in South Africa. So it defeats the purpose. So I think that yes, the rule of investors look at the rule of law, but if I was a president overnight, I would, forgive or give a pardon to former President Jacob Zuma, just to avoid all of these things going on in South Africa as it stands. Because if you are a president and you're just saying you want to uphold the rule of law and you're not, you care less of your citizens, whether they die or they live, then you're not a president, because you are supposed to lead people, not because you must have investment and all of those things. Yes, we need investment, but sometimes we gotta let it pass, because there are things that we need to sort out amongst ourselves as a country.
I see what you're saying, and you really do have a valid point. But then if it's responsibility, and there is the argument that the people leading some of these riots before the criminals set in were supporters of Zuma, don't you then think that former President Zuma also has a responsibility to talk to his supporters and tell them to actually desist from destroying this very, very country in which they live in?
Yeah, former President Jacob Zuma had the opportunity to do that. But you see also, when people are loyal, sometimes they won't even listen to you. You have his son, Edward Zuma, outside his home. When he was speaking to members of the media, he said that he'd rather die. He would lay down his life for. There were people who were forming a human chain, saying that before they take President Jacob Zuma, they would have to kill them. So that's the loyalty of people, and this could very well be that former President Jacob Zuma tried to speak to the people, but
is there any record of him having tried to speak to the people?
No, there's no record. But I'm not a political analyst, but I just feel like he could have done that, perhaps, because he knows his supporters, that they're very much radical.
Don't you think then the greater responsibility of being a former head of state and government, being in the position that he has been, the greater responsibility would be for him to ensure that he goes into this commission, clears his name, and number one, he clears his name, and number two, he upholds the rule of law. Number three, he shows his commitment to the fight against corruption.
Yeah, but he's not saying he doesn't want to go. He's saying this man must recuse himself. If you and I, my brother, have a history of me marrying your sister and leaving your sister with kids, there's gonna be a bad blood between us. You know what I mean? So we might end up having to fight. And now, if they take you to become a chief justice, you will deal with me decisively. Yeah. So he has a point. He's not saying I'm not going to go to this commission. He's saying that this man must recuse himself and he's going to come back.
I'm actually saying that in response to what you were saying earlier, that if you were President Cyril Ramaphosa, what you would do is you'd pardon Jacob Zuma. Is that the right thing to do, you think? Why not ensure that there's a fair process that goes into trying him, into investigating what actually happened in this state capture report, and then if he's found culpable, action is taken. If he's not, he's cleared.
Yeah, well, that's right. But also these the leading witnesses, or should I say the leading the people who are asking questions at the commission, they're also not fair. They are very much biased.
Okay.
Because when they ask former President Jacob Zuma questions, they ask him questions that he doesn't even, there's no way for you to, the recollection of what an MEC did in some province, you wouldn't know such things as a former statesman. But when President Ramaphosa comes in, is giggling, is laughing, it's joyous mood in the room. There's no tension, just because he's their boss. So there's also that sentiment from a lot of people. But the mainstream media, they've made former President Jacob Zuma to look like a devil, to look like someone who's very much corrupt.
Innocent.
And I think that is very wrong.
Okay, that is a perspective. But, Innocent, publicly, Raymond Zondo has admitted that he did father a child with one of Zuma's ex-wife's sister some years ago. That was the relationship. Now, they come from the same community. They're both Zulus. So are we saying that even the social and community structures could not bring some understanding between them? Because I'm failing to understand how somebody fathers a child with your estranged wife's sister, and that causes bad blood between you. I'm trying to understand how that is, to the point where the debate is taken further, where former President Zuma claims that we were actually good friends. Forget just acquaintances. We were good friends. We got along well. We had a good relationship. And Raymond Zondo isn't denying this. All he's saying is playing it down and saying, yeah, we just got along well, but we're not really good friends. What is certain is that these two people knew each other. But I'm still trying to understand the grounds on which, because if indeed they knew each other, yes, one could argue that there's a bias there that somebody could actually favor you. But the argument here is that because they knew each other and there's bad blood, he may not favor Zuma.
Maybe there's something that Zuma is saying. What is he saying?
Zuma is saying that this man and I know each other well, and he probably knows me so well that his being a judge here may not be useful because there are things that he knows about me personally, and because of that,
he should recuse himself.
Because he knows me that well, he should recuse himself.
Those are grounds for it.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, well, I think it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than the wife and all of those things and the child. There are other things that we do not want to know. And former President Jacob Zuma said it clear that I don't want to divulge more. I don't want to disclose more as to why I say he must recuse himself. So it looks like there's more. But I don't want to be like a former President Jacob Zuma spokesperson here. But it would appear to us that there is more than what he has said with regards to the child and them being Zulu and coming from, the same neighborhood.
There's something else that's really concerning me here, Innocent. And this is, on the one hand, there is the issue of even Zuma supporters coming out to say, you know what, why are you persecuting our person? There's, on the other hand, there's the issue of people coming out to protest and saying you should release him. But then, how can it so swiftly spiral out of control and get so violent? What is it saying about the society in South Africa?
And across the country.
Yeah.
Not just in one city either.
Across the country. And this is not the first time. It just looks like, people just need an excuse.
And
it is about, xenophobic attacks and something, people are out. It's something like as simple as this, people are out. What is it that's happening?
Yeah, well, from where I'm sitting, I get a sense, reading into all of these protests, right? As I've indicated before, in the earlier stages of our conversation, that I get a sense that people are really hungry, and that cannot be justifiable because the auntie that is working in the supermarket, she's not going to be paid, or maybe what if the company says we're moving because of 1, 2, 3, and that person is unemployed. And when you look at the the government also, they were very mischievous in terms of, creating a macroeconomy that is very inclusive, that is growing and inclusive. And they shifted that blame to young people and say, just start. What are you going to start when you don't have, when you don't have funding to start a business? Because the reality is that starting a business should not be the first resort. It should be the last resort, whereby you have maybe worked for some few years and then you have put money aside to start your own business. So the government also, if you look at young people today, my brother, they're not even interested in anything, in any political discourse. We're moving into the elections in October. I get a sense that they're pulling out. They're not even interested in this whole thing. And again, this COVID-19 regulations, they've really worsened things here in South Africa, because the president just comes and speaks to the people, no questions asked. He tells you not to walk in the streets at a particular time. He tells you that the restaurants will be closed. No questions asked. He doesn't take questions from the media. So it's more like a dictatorship state that we're moving into, and this is not healthy for South Africa.
Innocent, we want to thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for all the insights that you've shared with us.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you very much, sir.
Innocent Samosa is a broadcast journalist speaking to us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial star 811 star 795 hash to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Contemplating.
She's looking down with her hand raised.
Yes,
No, I mean,
it's her hand,
focusing
it's
and
her
reading
head.
something here is interesting.
No, read, please.
No. I just in pointing what we're saying and how we are, concluding this. I mean, just historically looking at some things that have happened. It's very interesting how history still plays a part in current day happenings. That people who protest something, it may look as though you're protesting a current imprisonment of Zuma. But it's actually historical issues that are coming to play today. I mean, just looking at some of these things and how they continue to play a role in decisions that people are making today, or attitudes or beliefs that people have in South Africa today. It's very interesting to look at it. It would be, I think, myopic to look at it and say, oh, okay, he's been jailed last week Thursday, and then we have people who are protesting it today. No, I think that there are historical beliefs, there are historical emotions that people are going through, and it's not about a ruling that took place last week.
If you look across the world, what the things that are termed as race riots, they have a historical bearing.
Yes.
I mean, let's go to the States where the riots there have actually caught the attention of the world for the longest time, beginning with 1992, the LA riots. What did they arise from? It arose from two incidences. There's a gentleman by the name of Rodney King. Now, the Rodney King story is known, but what is not known was the killing of a certain young girl, a 15-year-old by the name of Latasha Helens, shot by a Korean American. What contributed to this, because it was around the same time, was this person had a suspended sentence. I said, suspend what? Shoots a black child and suspended sentence. Okay? Now, all that we saw were the riots, but it brought to a head the injustices that these people felt. Now, recent, we had George Floyd. Okay? Now, anytime people get up in arms, one of the things that we've seen, we didn't quite see the George Floyd marches and protests. But with the LA riots, people looted shops.
They did.
The criminal element is always let loose. Do you remember, before we got to the period when we had what we now call the new constitution and the multi-party system coming back. They were every week there were marches and protests that were held in this city. The criminal element came in full force as well. Shops would be broken into, there would be robberies. So this again points to the same thing. What is it that makes people take advantage of a situation such as this one? And in so doing, they even confuse and they muddy
a bigger conversation.
Yes.
I think in the case of South Africa, there are a number of things at play. Like what Innocent has told us, the economic situation of very many people is a factor.
It's a big, not factor, it's a huge problem.
Because when people are coming out to loot from shops. They're coming to just grab something for themselves.
And even in their own neighborhoods, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's a big factor. Then it could also be pointing to unfulfilled promises. And this is where now I draw the line, because those in power who are jostling over power, this is Zuma, Ramaphosa, and everybody else in the ANC, are on one side, same side, and the citizens who are reacting like this are forgetting that they're actually the ones whose promises are unfulfilled.
And
Jacob Zuma's promise has been fulfilled.
He's reached the highest level in terms of his aspirations. He has reached
These
and
citizens
accomplished.
suffered the brunt of apartheid.
Yes.
They now have supposedly their own people in power, and they look and they wonder, but nothing seems to have changed.
Take off the list that he talked about. Power, not being able to supply power. You're looking at a national airline then being grounded to a halt. You're looking at not being able to, produce guns or machinery, artillery as you should be able to. Just look at that list, and that is what is on the menu of complaint for South Africans on a daily basis.
And then think about this. They have an election
job
round.
And there's an election coming up, job opportunities swindling, and then you want to give and say that there are a few immigrants here and there who are taking these jobs. It's a tinder keg for explosion.
It is.
It is.
It's a failure of the leadership to basically deliver the promise. Because there was a promise at the beginning of the 90s that now, with the release of Mandela, with the coming into power of our own party, the African National Congress, we are going somewhere. And then, so many years down the road, you realize that you haven't moved. But the same people are up there, they're fighting, so they'll keep weaponizing you. So it's one side being weaponized. This time it's, against Zuma. Others weaponized for Zuma. But bottom line, you're just being destructive.
Weaponized against Mbeki. So, yes.
It just won't happen. Coming to the end of the show, CT, tell us about the rivers.
No matter how full, the river still wants to grow. Okay.
ANC leaders.
Well, the growth it's twofold. One, those in leadership have grown. And what they have done, what many African leaders do, they are amassing wealth for themselves. Okay? But the common mwananchi, the common person, somehow is disenfranchised. So I guess the question you would ask is, what was the difference with apartheid, really? Okay, we supposedly say we have freedom.
Yeah.
But how exactly is this benefiting us?
The moment when they actually now turn the guns on those who are actually responsible, maybe they'll move somewhere.
It's heading in that direction.
Asanteni sana for tuning in today. Join us again tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's now 10 a.m.